Your mic's not on yet.
I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
The next witness is Ms. Brigitte Belton, who is here with her legal representative, Ms. Jane Scharf, who I understand wants to address you.
Okay, Ms. Scarf? It's your choice. You can do it from there or come up to the front, as long as you can be heard and recorded.
Okay. I have a few requests to make at the outset. Bridget needs more time. She's been allocated an hour, it's an hour and 15 minutes. She was one of the persons who initiated the convoy. She participated all the way through, and she has a lot of information about the organization element, and it's insufficient amount of time. So that's the first request. The second request is she has severe dyslexia, and we didn't get sufficient time to deal with the numbering and documentation. So we have a person here, Rebecca Shepherd, who has her documentation ready, and she can quote the numbers that need to be advised about what to bring up. And also, I want to request that I ask the questions of my client, because other witnesses are having their own counsel ask questions. We find it unfair, unreasonable for her to have to structure her statement according to questions given by somebody that doesn't know her case. And I also want an opportunity to question. I would like to question many different witnesses that were up there, but I'm only asking at this time to question Keith Wilson, because he's submitted a statement from an interview that he did on October 20th, and it discusses James Bowder and Brigitte Belton, and they need an opportunity to question him about that information. And that's all the requests. And then I have two objections. The first objection is this commission was struck under section 63(1), and it requires order in council, which is the entire cabinet, and it was only based on the recommendation of Justin Trudeau. So that is a problem, considering he's the subject of the inquiry and he's calling it as well. I'm understanding that Bill Blair set it up, so he chose yourself and whoever else are significant administrators in this process. We find that that's unreasonable, considering these are the people that are being investigated, so they should not be setting up this process, and the chair should not have been somebody that was selected from the liberal camp, so to speak. And the other objection is the inquiry is focusing on the grounds, whether there was sufficient grounds to call the Emergency Act, and this is, in my view, moot, because the Emergency Act was also not invoked legally according to section 17(1), which required an order in council, which would have been the entire cabinet. The only time the executive is allowed to make order in council without going through cabinet is in an emergency. So they had to at least initiate the process through the cabinet. That wasn't done. So all of this, in my view, seems moot, because if it wasn't legal out of the gate, there's the main issue. And that's it.
Well, that's a good list. We haven't had a list like that in any case. So let me try and address them. Firstly, you may not know, but I'm not in the Liberal camp. I've been a judge for 20 years, so that's just a fact.
Who were you appointed by?
I was appointed by the government, as you know.
By the Liberal government?
I'm not here to be cross-examined. I'm sorry. That's not how it works. So, but I'm just giving you a fact. Now, having said that, you of course can object to what the commission, how it was set up. That's something I can't do anything about. That's something you would deal with in the federal court, and you're certainly free to do that. In fact, I believe there are other parties who are in the federal court attacking the Emergencies Act, and I believe there's also someone in court today attacking one of the subpoenas. So that's something, if you think I'm not properly constituted, obviously that's something you can pursue, but there's nothing I can do about that. In terms of your 4 questions, the objective here is to get the testimony that the public wants as to how this all developed. I think your client we've heard, was very involved in it, and the commission would like to hear her evidence. Obviously, how that's going to happen, I said earlier today, you weren't here, that because of the nature of these questions and the nature of what witnesses like Ms. Belton have, I will be flexible about time, because ultimately what we're after is getting a proper representation from the people as to what happened, why it happened. So I can't say more than that, except that that's what our objective is. And we will be flexible for time. In terms of help, of course, if she needs help, that's something which, quite frankly, we're more than sympathetic about. We want the help needed, if she needs it, to get the documents out and to get the story out. That's what this whole commission's about, is about trying to get the information out. In terms of you questioning her, of course, you can question her. It's provided in the rules. It will just come at the end, and how long you'll help guide us as to what's needed. Our expectation is, and Commission Counsel, if you have been following the commission, have been very good to let the witnesses tell their story, because we're not here to try and push one line or the other. I think if you were here for the earlier witnesses today, they're here to tell the story. Commission Counsel will help bring it out. But of course, you're entitled to, as Ms. Belton's counsel, to make sure if we've missed something, to allow her to do it. In terms of questioning other witnesses, all I could suggest is, at the end of the day, you speak to Commission Counsel as to issues that you think Commission should pursue, because again, same objective, whether it's this witness or any other witness, we want the story to come out. So that's my best answer for your questions, your objections. As I say, I can do little about them. Federal court might be happy to deal with it, might not. I leave that to you. So that's my response. I'd like to be able to get on with Ms. Belton's evidence if I can, but I just want to hear if that's agreeable.
Well, I've been allotted 10 minutes.
Well, as I say, I will be flexible for that. And if you want more time, I will give you more time.
I do want more time. I want a lot more time. I would like to question her throughout.
Well,
and we need more than an hour.
Okay,
So,
well-
I'm just putting it out there. That's the end of it.
okay. So can we
And-
proceed?
One other thing, I did speak to Mr. Mather regarding Keith Williams' statement and where it's problematic. And he said to defer this issue to you.
Okay, well, and I think he was deferring to me whether you could question. And as I've said, that's not the way we operate. But if you speak to either Mr. Mather or to Mr. Leon, they can make sure the concerns, to the degree they're relevant as evidence, can be brought out. Because obviously we want to make sure the issues that are important to the commission and to the public are.
The thing is, the other council are invited to ask questions to witnesses. I can't.
No, I
And
understand
I'm
that.
just asking for one, not
Yeah.
all. And that should be fair. Okay, let her have one.
I'm sorry, that's not the way it works. It is not the process, but I'm trying to accommodate you. That's the best I can do.
So are we going to allow Rebecca to assist?
Okay. I think it's for documents, as I
Yes.
understand the issue.
Yes.
So when it comes to a question of documents, we'll sort it out. Either have her come up or have
That's not
whatever.
going to work. She's got to go get set up and organize the paperwork so that she can pass the numbers that need to be given to bring up the documents. They can't
Yeah,
just
but-
do that.
I can refer to them by the name that I sent them to, but you renumbered all of them.
Yeah.
So if you can't find them, then,
We'll sort it out.
okay, great.
I appreciate that, and believe me, the numbers, the system has been very good, but it's not simple. I need help. But we will help for that, and you
Okay.
can refer to the document, and when you refer, we'll find it. We may take a minute, may take 5 minutes, but we're all here for the same objective, I hope. Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Okay, so perhaps we can have the witness sworn and get started.
Ms. Belton, will you swear on a religious document or do you wish to affirm?
I have my Bible with me.
For the record, please state your full name and spell it out.
Brigitte, Brigitte, Evelyn, Evelyn, Ilsa, Ilse, Belton, Belton.
Do you swear that the evidence to be given by you to this commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Ms. Belton. Let me just, by way of introduction, and I think you understand this, but I just want to make sure that you understand the way the process works. I have, as you know, an hour and 15 minutes to ask you questions. As the commissioner has stated, he's going to be flexible with that. Then the other lawyers here have the same amount of time to ask you questions. That's all the lawyers together, not each one of them, or we'd be here for a long time. And then, as you've heard, your legal representative will then be able to ask you questions. My objective is to ask you questions so that you can tell your story about the Freedom Convoy and the role you played in it. If I miss anything, I hope to give you the opportunity to say so, and we'll try and deal with all of the points that you have. If you don't understand anything that I ask you, don't hesitate to ask me and to clarify it. And if I can just start by asking you, the documents that you have in front of you, are those the documents that you provided to the commission today?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just for reference.
So can we start off with you telling the commission a bit about your background? Were you born in Ontario?
Yes, I was born in Ontario. I was baptized at St. Peter's Lutheran Church on Bay Street. I lived in Toronto for 16 years, but would travel holidays back to Ottawa for my grandparents who were immigrated here with my parents, with my mom from Germany. And I grew up pretty normal, I guess, and moved when I was 16 to Ottawa over a man, and had 3 wonderful children, and moved back after my divorce to the Toronto area and became a truck driver.
And where do you live now?
I live in a very small place called Wallaceburg, Ontario, and it is a border community. All truck traffic goes southbound.
And is that close to Sault Ste. Marie? Have I got the joke?
No, that's
right?
a little further north. I'm probably smack dab in between Windsor and Sarnia.
Okay. And just in terms of a year, when did you start working as a truck driver?
On December, I believe it was 19th, I got my license
December 19 of
of
what year?
2014.
Thank you.
And of 2015, on February 6th, I started driving for Schneider National, which is no longer in Canada after the mandates came in.
I see. And at some point, did you start driving as an independent?
Yeah, we thought essential meant essential, my husband and I. He resurrected his business that had been stale for about 2.5 years. We bought a truck from Manitoba and was preparing to grow a trucking company. We were hoping to provide Canada with a Landstar option style company, as Canada doesn't have that for owner operators. We were hoping to grow this over the next few years. We took possession of the truck in October of 2021, or September, I think it was 2021, and we finally got signed on with Landstar in October of 2021. And from there, we really honestly didn't think the government would change the definition of essential to only when necessary.
Can I make an objection? This line of questioning wasn't in your set of issues. You were looking for her background that caused her to make a decision to pursue the convoy. That was in the list. You weren't looking for detail, history. That's taking up a lot of time.
Yeah, well, I think it's just we're trying to get the story out. You can't really object to her telling.
Well, that's why I
An
wanted
answer.
to ask the question so we wouldn't waste any of the hour.
Yeah, well, we will try not to waste time, and if we work together on that, I'm sure we'll get to the end.
Let's get started.
Go ahead.
Now, let's come to November 16, 2021. I take it you were driving into Canada from the United States with the load on that day?
Yes, I was.
And you had, I think, what you would describe as an extremely unpleasant interaction with a border officer, Canadian border officer, correct?
Yes, Windsor is typically a very hard, difficult border to cross, regardless of mandates. Once the mandates came in, they were unreasonable. And it was not the first issue with Windsor. It was the second issue with Windsor. And the third incident was CBSA during the COVID years.
Okay. And immediately after that encounter, you posted a TikTok video about your experience. Is that
No,
correct?
I was locked in their compound, not allowed to leave when I posted that video. I was afraid that I was going to be taken away by Windsor police. I thought that time was the time. They were finally going to take a truck that they did not own, take a load that did not belong to them, take my dog and euthanize him and take me to jail. That's what I thought that night. And I was done with CBSA. I was done with the crap Canada was going through. And I was definitely done with the behavior of Canadians.
Okay. Can we move then? And I'd like to show the video if that's okay. It's COM 50589.
Council, can we have a brief minute while we're loading that video, please?
While we're getting the video loaded, at that point, were you an active user of TikTok?
Actually, not really. I think it's maybe my fourth video on TikTok. I had been repeatedly put in Facebook jail. I guess most of us now in my situation use that as a badge. I think one of my comments was something about somebody eating crayons and I got banned for 33 days. So this was probably a double hit on this one. I think it was 55 days total at this time that I was being restricted from reaching out to my community on Facebook. So I had taken to TikTok. I thought it was really people just running along cars and jumping in them and singing, but it was so much more.
Well, you know more about it than I do. So, and then so you were on other social media like Facebook as well?
Yes, I was on Facebook. Again, I was censored on Facebook. My first real big censor on there was when I had explained to people that Florida was never closed, that the only blockade for people getting in and out of Florida was on I-96, that I-75 and I-10 were wide open because I had been there. But our reporters here were telling people they couldn't get to Florida, which was total BS. Everybody could go in and out. And the only restriction was on I-96. And I believe it was only for New York residents at that time.
Okay, well, let's watch the video then.
If I could just please have the number again, council.
Is it going to show up here?
If I could please have the document ID again, please,
Oh,
council.
I'm sorry, COM 50589.
This is Canada. Do you want to know what it feels like to be
This is Canada.
attacked,
Do you want to know what it feels
threatened? Just crossed the Canadian border. As a truck driver, I just crossed in tonight. And an officer sent me into secondary with a threat of the Windsor police coming and giving me a fine or whatever they're going to do to me. I don't know. The last time I was here for a mask mandate issue, they threatened to take my truck. They threatened to impound my load. And then I spoke with Windsor Health Department, and they gave me, Jessica's number, and I was supposed to deal with her. But see, in Canada, we're no longer free. And this may be the night where I go and ask for exile into the U.S. because this is a big country. This isn't what my grandparents came for. Being harassed at the border over a mask. I just wish that somebody understood that not all of us can wear it. And what happened to me the night, the reason why I mentally can't deal with being something over my face, I should never have to explain. Over the last 2 years, people have made my life hell. Over the last 2 years, people have become rude and ignorant, and I'm done. I'm done. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I'm done. This is ridiculous. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. This is what it's like to be Canadian. People get out, move.
Now, could you tell the commissioner what impact this incident had on you going forward?
Right from that night, the first impact was noticed as my husband was asking me to stop. I actually passed 3 truck stops, not even realizing I had passed them on the 401 eastbound. When I finally pulled in to the Flying J in London, it was full. There was no parking. London police are known for ticketing trucks. So I left. On my exit from the London truck stop, you get to a dead end and you have to turn right. On that right turn, I did not see a minivan. And I nearly killed the people in that minivan that night. I pulled out, I proceeded down the highway. And I stopped at the very next stop. I realized at that point I was just over the moon upset. I stopped at the Husky and I pulled in the back and I said goodbye to my husband. I told him I'm done. I couldn't do it. I told PIAC when they called me that night on the phone that I was done. I told the wily driver that came up to console me I was done. I couldn't live that way anymore. Every time I came back into Canada, we couldn't buy clothes. We couldn't buy supplies to work. We worked 8 months with no sanitizer, no face masks, nothing. We had no bathrooms. We had no showers. We were refused everywhere we went. You have no idea what it's like to pee in a park on your way home from work because nobody meaning Subway in Chatham, would let me use their bathroom. And I just delivered a frozen load of Subway bread. It was the same store I was supporting, and they wouldn't let me use their bathroom. You have no idea how demeaning those COVID measures were to our industry. And yet I felt it my duty to support Canadians and bring you the goods and services that many hoarded.
Thank you. And if we can move forward, it was later that week that the Canadian government announced that a vaccine mandate would be introduced effective January 15 for people coming over the border, including commercial truckers. I'm sure you recall that.
Yes, I remember the smugness of our Prime Minister.
And what did that mean for your ability to work as a trucker?
That would mean that the truck that my husband just purchased would go bankrupt. At that time, JBT, I had gone to that trucking company looking for Canadian-only loads and to move the truck, his company truck, over to JBT. We were refused because of a vaccine mandate. We were also looking for companies even just to drive. The rate had dropped from approximately 50 to 60 cents a mile to 38 cents a mile. It was slave labor. We then, and that was for Canadian only. And Canadian only loads, I have to tell you, between Ontario into Manitoba are some of the worst roads you'll ever drive. There are no places to stop. Nobody cares about the people up in Northern Ontario. And yet truckers do it every day, and it's a death highway. It's a death trap.
And sorry.
So during all of that, there was very little solution for our truck. It would mean bankruptcy of the company.
And I take it that shortly after that, you came up with an idea for a convoy, a protest convoy. Is that right?
Yes, and my husband and Chris Barber both told me convoys never work. They just never had a woman do it.
So what was your idea?
The idea was actually to work like CBSA. CBSA had a strike during COVID. They felt they didn't have enough money or enough benefits. They left truck drivers sit on the bridges. I was lucky, I was only there for 2 hours without food, fuel, or a bathroom. A friend of mine was there for 14 hours, stuck in the backup and the backlog from CBSA. So I thought, well, if CBSA can disrupt our country and be just fine and have a settlement within 24 to 48 hours, truck drivers could do the same. We'll just follow CBSA's lead. And that's what we did.
And am I right that it was shortly after that you came into contact with Chris Barber?
Yeah, I had been trying throughout the month of December, especially the more that our prime minister hit the airwaves, threatening Canadians with consequences, his favorite word. I kept continuing looking on TikTok because I found out you could use the search bar and put in truckers and find truckers. And I put into their comment bars, Convoy 2022, Convoy 2022. And I just kept going until somebody responded, and thank God for Chris Barber.
And did you ultimately get in touch with Mr. Barber?
We did. We touched base. I believe our first exchange was on or about the 1st of January. Our second on or about the 2nd of January, where he agrees, and I build a flyer, and we go from there.
Okay. Now I'd like to show you what I believe to be a copy of that flyer. The document number is COM 50869. And I take it you posted this on your TikTok in early January. Is that right?
Yes, that's the only place I wasn't getting banned.
So if we look at that, come to join us, Convoy to End Mandates. It says, please contact Kathy. Who is Kathy?
Kathy was our Calgary, it says right there, Calgary. She was our Calgary road captain, leader, organizer.
So at this point, had you already started to identify organizers and?
It happened overnight. Once Chris and I started taking to the airways, it literally exploded overnight.
And it says at the bottom, January 23rd, we slow roll. I think it's
It should be
every
every.
province until mandates stop.
Yes.
So what was your plan?
Our plan was to slow roll in place, not necessarily block borders. That was never the plan. It was to slow traffic, be a nuisance, but be within our legal rights to protest.
And you said that it all happened very fast. What were the things that you and Mr. Barber were doing to make it happen?
Putting information such as this out on TikTok with our email address, our phone numbers. Both Chris and I had conversations regarding how much our phone was ringing, and we had no time for anything else. I would frequently stay up till 3 a.m. answering text messages, emails, messages through TikTok for information. I'd been contacted from the Yukon, from Nunavut, from BC through to Newfoundland.
And I understand that at some point, your original plan shifted to a convoy of trucks to Ottawa. Is that right?
Yes, I mean, the idea never shifted. It was always for the mandates. I received a message from the Women's Federation of Trucking, And Shelley is a friend of my husband's, has been for quite some time. They've done cancer convoys together. She had contacted me with Mr. Bowder's convoy information, and I remember saying to her, those are my dates. I'm going to have to call him and tell him to change his dates. I wasn't planning on working together. However, James is a good salesperson, and he told me he had a lot of resources. He had done a convoy before, and that we could work together.
And so had you known Mr. Bowder before?
No,
And did he tell you about a prior convoy that he had organized?
he just told me he had a convoy.
And did you know anything about his social media presence at that
Not-
point?
Not really. I have gone back through my emails. Somebody had asked me to sign it, his MOU. Basically gave me a rundown of what it was, and I went over and I signed it just as support. I've never read the full document.
And is he a trucker himself?
I have no proof he isn't.
Now, at some point, you also got together with Pat King.
At the same time, actually.
Okay. Who arranged that?
I was talking with James regarding the dates and him offering a whole bunch of support. And he had mentioned that Pat King was trying to get a hold of me. I'm like, who's Pat King? And we did a three-way call to connect.
And that was in early January?
January 12th.
And then the next night, you were part of a Facebook Live streamed event that Mr. King hosted?
Yes, sir.
And you were there, Mr. Bowder, Mr. Barber, and there were a few others as well.
Yes, there were.
And what did you talk about as a group? What was the discussion like?
I do know that it was being presented to the other convoy, who I would say the core group of the leadership, Dale, Joe, myself, and Chris, whether we were going to work together, what was being brought on the table. And of course, our silly truck driver selves was mixed into there. So it was just a basic, are we going to do this as a group or are we not? And I believe the consensus was that we were. I believe it was Joe that spoke up first that said, I guess we're going to Ottawa.
And Joe, do you recall his last name?
Jensen.
And Dale?
Evans? That's kind of with a question mark on the end of it. I believe that's his last name.
And so at this point in time, what stage was the plan at? Was it?
Well, we were growing very, very fast. Pat King had a huge media presence, so he claimed. His claim is true. And that helped us reach out to more people. James Bowder also had a huge media presence, which helped us reach even more people. At the time Convoy started, I had less than 1,000 followers. I was new to TikTok. Chris had explosive numbers. I think he was in the 160s. I can't give it an exact number. So these gentlemen had the numbers to get going. I had the passion, the drive, and the heart.
And I take it at that point, you hadn't reviewed either Mr. Bowder's or Mr. King's past social media posts or
No, I don't typically go spy on people.
did you do that subsequently?
Not really. I like to judge people on how they behave with me or to me.
Now, at this Facebook Live event, it was reported that 3,000 people tuned in. Were you familiar with that number?
I'm going to take your word for it.
Okay. And I understand that towards the outset of this meeting, Mr. King introduced you as one of the organizers who was handling the Ontario section. Was that right?
Yeah, I'm from Southwestern Ontario. I believe I also expressed I would be doing Sarnia as my own personal, but I dealt directly with ADT Trucking, the Yonkers, David Steinberg. Sorry, Dave. And a whole lot of others, Mike and Andrew throughout Ontario. Ontario being my home, it gave me the ability to grow faster in the area. They knew out in the Western provinces, so they had their connections there.
I would like to object again. We were told there was several topics that you were going to introduce and leave it open-ended for her to present her information or testimony, and it's not. It's being led. And there's a lot of information here that is not critical for such a short amount of time. She has some very important information that she intends or wants to put out there, and it's not coming out. And he's direct. And we asked for questions, and they said, "Oh, it's not questions; it's a list of topics." And they gave us the topics and said it was going to be open-ended for her to testify under those topics. But that's not what's happening here.
Okay. Is there a problem with the questioning, Ms. Belton, or are you okay with the way it's going? Is there a problem?
As long as we get the time to get all the information out, we can go forward.
Okay, go ahead.
And by that point in time, we saw that I think you already had your departure date set as January 23rd for your convoy?
That was set prior to even Chris Barber agreeing. I was going forward whether he agreed or not. I was just lucky that it was him that did agree.
And had you planned your route?
I had a very good idea of what the Sarnia would look like. I understood a lot of the geographics of the highways throughout Canada. I've driven them for quite some time. I did realize that some routes we couldn't get close enough to the border, that we would have to push back into the city centers just so that we could keep rolling and not block things. We could actually get around in a loop. So those were all coming into play, and they were all thought of. There was no intention to block anything, just to slow things down and just be a nuisance, I guess. To be heard, to be seen.
Yes. And in the same Facebook Live presentation, I understand that Mr. Bowder discussed Operation Bear Hug. Were you familiar with that?
Yes, well, I'm familiar with the term. I'm familiar with James Bowder, and James Bowder can talk about his bear hug. I don't know his in and out workings. That's his organization.
Okay. Have you ever been involved in the Canada Unity organization?
I was on a live where James proudly and I accepted a mug, 2 t-shirts, and 2 stickers, maybe 1 sticker, but I think there were 2.
Okay.
And a keychain.
And you've already told us about your signing the MOU without reading it. In that same Facebook Live meeting, do you recall Mr. Bowder discussing his MOU?
I kind of roll my eyes when James talks about the MOU, to be honest.
And do you recall that Mr. King, in the course of the meeting, thanked you and gave you and Mr. Barber credit for lighting the spark to make this happen?
Yes, I guess.
Now, at this point in time, what did you understand from your point of view, the purpose or the goal of the Freedom Convoy?
To end the mandate so I could go back to work and every other essential worker could become essential again.
And did you have a vision at this point as to what would happen when you arrived in Ottawa?
I actually believed that the Prime Minister wouldn't run away and he would come and meet with us. I believed that our voices would be heard. I believed that we were validated in our complaint and that after 2 years, maybe somebody would care.
And at some point, I understand you met Tamara Leach.
Yes,
Was it around that time or before?
around which time?
Around the time of the Facebook Live presentation?
I don't have a date that I met Tamara Leach. I can estimate approximately the 14th of January.
Okay. And the people that I named, that is you, Mr. Barber, Mr. King, Ms. Leach, Mr. Bowder, did you regard them as the leadership group of this effort?
Not all of them.
Who did you regard as the leadership group?
Chris, myself, James, Pat was lead on media. There were road cuts. There's a lot of leaders. Tamara was not considered an organizer or leader. She was never presented to me that way. She had offered to do the GoFundMe, I apologize, and Facebook media. That's where I understood her to start and stop her involvement.
And so you've told us about your role in Southern Ontario. Were you doing publicity as well?
Yes, it was difficult as I was receiving phone calls from all over the country.
And was there a sign-up procedure?
I believe it came out later. Someone provided a document to hand out to the truck drivers to sign up. A lot of that didn't happen due to the chaos at each of these stops. Canada came to welcome us, Canada came to travel with us, and Canada came to support us.
And Mr. Barber was responsible for the Western convoy, is that? your
He was
understanding?
responsible for his province.
And what were Mr. Bowder's responsibilities?
For his group.
And am I correct that he already had a number of maps and routes from his prior convoy to Ottawa?
That's correct. He was our support. He stated that he would provide us with support, places to park, information, a group of people that would welcome us and assist us. I don't think he failed on that.
Was there anybody else involved in the this organizing process that we haven't talked about?
At the beginning,
Yes.
not that I'm aware of. Again, however, each leader had a group of individuals that they worked with. So it expanded outwards.
Okay. And did you have road captains?
That's what they tended to be called. I considered everyone I spoke with to be their own leader, to follow the idea that we had envisioned and go from there.
And how did you make sure everybody understood that idea?
When we had our initial contact, I mean, when I talked with Southwestern Ontario leads or road captains or organizers, whatever you'd like to call them, it was very clear, this is what we are doing. This is how we'd like to do it. In your area, this is possible. And we're always going to be about safety. A lot of these drivers that stood up to take leadership roles were business owners, independent contractors, or just owner operators in general. They know how to do logistics. I don't need to tell them.
So if we can move forward then to the date when you departed from with your convoy,
Yes.
is there anything else you want to say about what happened before?
Is there something specific you're looking for?
No, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
I had been in contact with OPP Brian from Sarnia. We were on the same page. I was following his advice. I was instilling it into the drivers that I was working with, that safety is number one. And we went forward. The day we arrived on the 23rd was overwhelming.
At that point, how many trucks were in your convoy?
There was too many people to count. The truck stop at Wyoming at exit 25, I've never seen more than maybe 100 trucks in there. And that day, it was hard to get a lane in and out of the truck stop. It was a snake. You had to snake around. London was no different, and neither was any other truck stop or our planned stop along the way.
So you had planned to have other stops along the way where other trucks joined you for the convoy?
They would just roll in with us, a lot of them.
Excuse me, there's one important element that's missing that was in her timeline, and it would have been included had I been asking the questions. And that was the things that she did to try and resolve the issues prior to initiating the convoy with the CBSA and MPs and so on. And I think she has, or I know she has entered those documents to the commission.
Okay, well, if you could take a note, that's the sort of thing you're welcome to do. Maybe that question can be dealt with, but if you can make notes, those are the
Okay.
sorts of things that would be
Sure.
helpful to the commission when you get to do your questioning. We can
Yeah.
fill in those blanks.
Okay.
Now, I'm coming to this, but if I can just have the clerk turn up COM 50871. But before you start that, I have a couple of questions. What was the route that you followed to Ottawa?
I'm sorry, which was
What was the route that you followed to Ottawa, just in general?
I took 402 down to the 401, 401 to the 416, 416 to, I believe it was the 417 to Pinecrest, Pinecrest to Carling, Carling to the Parkway. And I was blocked in with the rest of the trucks at the intersection for the last bridge before Wellington.
How long were you blocked in there for?
The trucks remained there the whole time. I was in my pickup truck. I didn't bring a big truck to Ottawa. It would be easier for me to assist and help people move around in my pickup truck. So I took my pickup truck and I was able to turn around and go back the other way. So I was in and out same day.
So is that location where your convoy stayed for the?
That's where the
duration?
map sent us. That's where the police sent us, and that's where we went.
But I was going to ask you, did you have ongoing contact with the OPP or the Ottawa Police Service along the way?
I honestly can't tell you if I did or did not. I'm sure I did. I had a lot of phone calls coming in and a lot of police talking with me along the way. Once Sarnia met up with the GTA, Dave Steinberg took over lead as he had the most vehicles. So I'm sure he can answer those questions. And we did communicate between myself, Mike, Andrew, the Yonkers, ADT trucking. We were all in communication. We all knew each other. At this point, we had approximately 3 weeks to 2.5 weeks to prepare. So we were definitely constantly in
Good.
communication.
Your understanding, though, is that there was contact with the police along the way?
My understanding is yes.
And did they, is it your understanding that they directed you where to go when you arrived, as you've described?
My pictures show that where the police officer's moving the barrels and my truck is going through where he directed.
Now, if we can take a step back, you did another TikTok video along the route of what you were experiencing, and at least one.
That wasn't during, that was probably posted afterwards.
Well, let me bring it up and you can see it, and it's COM 50871.
From every mountainside, land where my father shines, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring, let freedom
Now we see in,
Council, when was this document disclosed to the parties? Is this one of the documents that were disclosed this morning?
sorry?
Is this one of the documents that were disclosed this morning?
No. Now, in that video, we saw people along the sides of the roads, on the overpasses. Can you just describe what you were experiencing along the way?
Canadians finally peaceful. Canadians supporting each other. Canadians finally not separated or segregated in any way.
And before you arrived in Ottawa, did you have a plan as to where you were going to go, or was your plan just to follow the directions that you received?
That would be questions for James Bowder. He had the information, had made arrangements, and we were following his lead on that. So those organizational details went to him. I was following what was sent to me from his organization. And I do believe I had to request it on the 28th, as I hadn't received it. But we were following the directions. He had done this before. I was following his direction.
And so you told the commissioner that you were in your pickup truck, you got out of that line. Where did you go?
After everybody was parked,
Yes.
I went up to Armpire to meet my buddy Chris.
And what did you do then?
I hugged him.
Okay. At some point, did you come back into Ottawa?
Not that night. I stayed at a relative's home.
Mhm. And so you came back on the 29th? Is that?
I went back up to Armprior on the 29th, and I led Mike Stack and the rest of the convoy in. I knew the area. It's easier when you have a pilot car that knows the directions and the city streets. We were again told to go through onto the S-Jam. However, a portion of the convoy was unknowingly to me then directed by overhead signs to use different streets. Some of us were already on the S-Jam and others were being directed by overhead signage.
Do you know to use what streets? Do you know?
I was on the S-Jam, so I wouldn't know.
Okay. And where did you, and this was the Western convoy, was it, that you were guiding it?
Yes, sir.
And where did you end up?
On the S-Jam?
And at some point, did you make your way into Ottawa?
Well, the S-Jam comes right up. The Ottawa police had moved whatever barricade or blockade, whatever they had, preventing vehicles from moving forward, allowed Chris and myself to move up onto Wellington Street. I parked right beside this building, off the roadway. Chris found a parking spot on Wellington, and that's where he parked Big Red. Tamara and Chris got out.
And had you anticipated that vehicles would be parked on Wellington itself?
I understood what James Bowder had told me. I believe we had permits. I'm not sure if we did or not. I didn't double check anybody's work.
And at some point, did you become aware that trucks had been, were located in residential areas off of Wellington?
I came in and out of the city almost every day for approximately 5 days. I had no problem getting in and out of the city. If you learned how to snake around the city, it was open access. I did understand there were some concern about where trucks were, and Chris being Chris was taking care of that, so I let him do that.
Okay. And
I should rephrase that. I didn't let him do that. We agreed that he would do that.
And what did you do during the weeks you were in Ottawa? And just in very general terms, so how did you occupy yourself?
Oh, there was so much to do. I made designs for sweaters for the show up on at Parliament Hill. I donated food to the Uville Center, which I'm a former girl of. I helped with logistics when I could. I helped with mapping. My hand was in every pot, although I was not in one section. They tried to, Tom Marazzo kept trying to fit me into a box, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't fit into the boxes, I'm up here. And I just went off and did whatever, wherever anybody needed me.
And can you give me some examples of where you were needed?
I had a call from a city of Ottawa resident that her and a few of her family members were having a hard time reaching a food bank. So I told her to give me her number. I would work on getting her support to get to the food bank that she needed to, since taxis, buses, and other transportation were not coming into the city. And that's what I did. I passed her number off to John. I do not know his last name. And I do know he's from Ontario. And I passed her number off to John, checked with him, made sure that was taken care of. and away we went. So when a fire came up, if I could put it out, I'd put it out. If I couldn't, I'd pass it on.
How did that person get your phone number? Do you know?
It was posted all over the internet.
Okay. And I'm going to, if you can turn up, Mr. Register, COM 50870. It's another one of your TikTok videos. But while that's happening, what were you seeing in Ottawa on Wellington Street?
Love, unity, people happy. This had been 2 years. People had been suppressed. 2 years. People were struggling. 2 years that our government had told us, shame your family. Do not allow them to come to Christmas. Do not allow them to come at Easter. Do not allow them to come to your home if they are not vaccinated, if they don't wear a mask. There was a lot of hate in Canada, and the Toronto Sun supported it, or the Toronto Star, excuse me, supported it. People were evil towards each other, and that is not what I saw in Ottawa. I saw love, I saw unity, I saw Quebec with Alberta, I saw Ontario with Quebec hugging. I saw people happy. It was the best thing that happened to our country in 2 years.
Okay, can we play that video then?
Officer that's getting threatened is a little upset this morning or yesterday. He tweeted that he was getting threatened and he's got work to do in Ottawa. I've heard this rhetoric before, actually, but I'd like to tell you, sir, this is what it's like to be a truck driver crossing into Canada. Because of you and your staff and the mandates, you have threatened me for 2 years. How does it feel? Doesn't feel so good, does it? I've lost 22 pounds now because of what has happened to me at the border. Who's going to address the mental health issues that your agents, your CDS agents, they are a direct extension of you, have done to me? Nobody's paying for that. You've tortured me for 2 years. And you're worried about our peaceful protest? Maybe stop paying Antofia to show up if you don't want to be threatened. It's not our group. Have a good day.
And what led you to make that video?
One of the ministers complained they were getting harassed and they had work to do in Ottawa. We had been harassed every day for 2 years.
And if you can bring up, please, so another video, COM 50872. Did you, while you were, we were doing that, while you were in Ottawa, did you see, you've described how you felt about the conduct there, but did you see any conduct that you felt was inappropriate or caused you concern?
I mean, there were people drinking. Maybe it wasn't in a LCBO licensed establishment, but I saw food not being checked by food agencies either. Is that the risk? I guess we all took it, we survived.
Okay, can we play that video then? And where was that taken?
Up at Parliament Hill on Wellington.
Okay,
That was the day I arrived, I believe.
thank you. Now, if I can just shift gears here for a minute, because that's not the appropriate expression to use for someone who drives a truck, but
If you can do it without clutching, I'm impressed.
At some point, did you learn about protests in Windsor and Sarnia?
Yes,
Oh, how did you learn?
media.
Did you speak to anybody who was involved?
Not involved.
Who did you speak to?
I spoke with ADT Trucking, who called me and asked me if we could block the Windsor border. And my response was, no way, continue to slow roll.
And who called you from ADT?
I don't know who called me from ADT.
And any other contact with anyone involved in what was going on in Windsor or Sarnia?
In Sarnia,
Yeah.
I saw TikTok videos of farmers on the roadway. Only through social media did I have contact. I had no idea that was planned. I had no idea anything like that.
And we've heard about other protests at borders in other places in Canada. Did you have any contact with anyone who was involved in those protests?
No, even my TikTok suggests that I don't know anyone at the Coots border, but I thought they had a lot of gumption, I guess you could say.
Now, coming back to your time in Ottawa, did you maintain contact with James Bowder?
Could you repeat that question?
Coming back when you were in Ottawa, did you maintain contact with James Bowder?
Coming back from where?
Oh, sorry. I'm just coming back in my questions to your time in Ottawa. Did you maintain contact with James Bowder?
I saw him every day. We were in the same hotel.
And did you have any idea about how large his group of protesters were?
No,
Okay. Did you have any conflicts or concerns with him?
we all have conflict with each other. It's human nature.
Anything of significance?
No,
Did you understand that there were concerns being expressed about his memorandum of understanding?
there were concerns expressed about pretty much all of us at one point in time.
And did you have any reaction to the concerns about his memorandum of understanding?
It had nothing to do with me.
And did you have any ongoing contact with Pat King while you were in Ottawa?
Yes, he offered to pay for the sweaters that I designed.
Anything else?
We hugged in the street. We live streamed together. He was doing his job as media when it came to me.
And were you aware of that there were some criticisms of things he was doing in Ottawa?
There were criticisms of all of us from somebody.
Did you have any concerns about what he was doing in Ottawa?
I've already said no.
Now, I understand that at some point, you and some of the others that you dealt with at the beginning, when you were organizing the convoy, had a disagreement. Is that a fair way to put it?
Wouldn't be the first time, probably won't be the last.
At some point, did you break away from the leadership group or anything like that while you were in Ottawa?
Not while I was in Ottawa. I did not show up as often at the Sheridan where Keith Wilson and Tamara and Chris were mostly stationed with a few others. I felt more comfortable at the Arc doing more of the humanitarian style, helping and just being me.
And we heard evidence this morning that from Mr. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Were you involved in distributing envelopes of cash to people in Ottawa?
Did I physically go out and do that?
Yes.
No.
Did you have any involvement in putting them together or anything like that?
I did have one or two let me start that again. I had one or two times where I put envelopes together. Due to transparency, I had requested that we film those, that when we got the money, we counted it, we put it into envelopes, and they were distributed. The group over at the Sheridan got a little upset with us as they were handing out $500, and Drew had suggested we hand out 2,000 since 500 is not a large number.
And the group at the Sheraton, who was that?
That would be Chris Barber, Keith Wilson, Tamara Leach, Joe Jensen, Dale, Ryan, Miranda.
And who, I'm sorry, I missed what you said. Who suggested $2,000?
I believe it was Drew. I could be incorrect.
Okay. And what happened with that? Did anything come of that?
They got $2,000.
And in terms of your relations with the group at the Sheraton?
They were upset. They said we made them look bad.
Now, on February 12th, 2022, you were aware that, or at least you're now aware that an agreement was reached with the mayor of Ottawa to move trucks onto Wellington.
I'm assuming I wasn't there.
Did you know or hear about such an agreement?
I heard the agreement was not valid
And who did you hear that from?
through social media.
And did you discuss it with anyone to find out whether it was valid or not?
No, I heard the report and moved on.
If I can ask you to bring up COM 50868. And I understand this to be a TikTok you posted on February 13, 2022.
When are we gonna lose?
Thanks,
we're
boys. You
losing
got
ground.
this key, right? Not on the press.
They're down there.
Hold that line, boys. Hold it.
Yeah.
Oh, they're right now.
No, yeah, Phil's down there.
like two of the fucking
Some of them down.
Okay.
So that was a copy of the agreement?
Yep,
Or a
could be.
notice of the agreement, I'm sorry.
Yep. I don't know how I got it. If I took it myself, I have no recollection of how that got to be, but I always forwarded information onto my TikTok.
And why did you put it as fake news?
Because I believed it to be fake.
And did you check with anybody one way or another? How did you come by that belief?
That's what I was told by whomever was around me. It was fake news. So that's what I posted.
And at some point in time, you left Ottawa to read.
The Ottawa red zone or Ottawa as a whole?
Well, let's deal with both. At some point, did you leave the Ottawa red zone?
Yes, I left on the 18th in the red zone
And where did you go?
to Ottawa West to a family member's home.
Okay. And why did you leave on that day?
Because the police were about to attack Canadian citizens.
And were you arrested at any time?
No, sir.
Was your bank account frozen?
Yes, sir.
For how, tell me about that. What happened?
I understood the government officials stated that they had notified organizers their bank accounts would be frozen. My husband notified me my bank account and his bank account and our business bank account were frozen. And at 10:04 on the 17th is when I received a phone call from a person stating they were from the Royal Bank and that they had frozen my accounts. They had a very nasty exchange with me because they had no right to do so. I told them to open the accounts. They told me to call them when I left Ottawa, and I said, you need to open my accounts. We ended the exchange. I realized other people in the room were also getting that same phone call. Whether it was the same person making the phone call, I do not know, but I do know other people in the room were getting the same phone call.
And so what happened after that?
I had no money.
And what did you do?
I had to ask for money or let people know that I didn't have any money. And I was lucky enough that two gentlemen on the street actually understood my truck payment was coming due, and I was a few $100s short. I think it was $6 something I was short. They together collectively sent me enough money to cover my truck payment. A woman by the name of Miss Zena was kind enough to give me $100, which helped because it put gas in my car, in my pickup truck to go. And from then we had to scramble on how we were going to pay for medication for my husband and how we were going to pay the mortgage.
And so this was while you were still in the, excuse me, the Ottawa area?
Yes.
And at some point were your accounts unfrozen?
Yes.
And when was that?
You'd have to ask my husband. He takes care of that.
Okay. And when did you leave Ottawa to come back home?
March. I don't have a specific date.
I'm sorry?
I don't have a specific date, but it was March.
Okay. And is there anything else you want to tell the commissioner about what happened while you were in Ottawa?
I just want everybody to know that we weren't there to disrupt the city residents. We were there to be heard. I had given 32 emails approximately to MPs and MPPs. 32. Not one of them did anything for me. I followed how things are supposed to go. You first go and you complain. You try again. You try again. And when CBSA sent me a reply, pretty much, suck it up, buttercup, this is the way it's going to go and you're about to lose your job, so don't worry about it. What did you want me to do? Sit down, lie down, lose everything over a mandate that was really no longer effect in the US? That's what my country was asking for me. That's what Canadians that were supporting vaccine mandates were asking of me, to lose everything because they were afraid, because our government did a very good job at scaring people, making them so afraid that today still some wear face masks. Many of us here are not.
And
that propaganda hurt our country. And having our prime minister saying that there will be consequences for the unvaccinated, and we don't want them sitting beside our children on planes and trains and automobiles. And the amount of, I'm trying to control my anger over this gentleman, but the wording that he used was division the whole time. Pit one person against another, shame them, make them comply. And if they don't, they will. I'm sorry. I draw the line when my government wants to throw something into my body I cannot remove. That is where I draw the line. Bodily autonomy, it is mine. It is not my government's.
thank you for answering my questions.
We're going to take a break and I'm going to consider whether we're going to clear the hall. So I'm going to take a short break, and when I come back, I'll decide if we're going to clear the hall. 5 minutes.
The commission is in recess for 5 minutes. La commission est levée pour 5 minutes.
Oh, roller coaster, top and valley. Oh, wow. He's not pleased. Why is he so unpleased? What was going on? Hey, Joe, I don't know if you're still there. I think you ran to the store. You might be back. Well, first of all, how can you keep your emotion if you're in the crowd like that? This is all what we all wanted to say for 2.5 years. Everything she said, it came straight from me. She connected to my head and my heart, and she said what I was thinking. Oof. I don't know if you're there, Joe, so I'll go ahead and just make it my mug for now. But yeah, you can tell the commissioner is now, this is, I think, the 4th warning to the crowd, and the crowd did try to self-control themselves right at the end there, but let's go. Hey, I'm loving this. Stunt, you just showed up. You got to rewind. All 3 witnesses today, Chris Barber, Steve Charlin en français, fabulous. He is from Farfada, so he'll tell you everything. And then now Brigitte Belton. Oh my gosh, we have some amazing Canadians. We knew that, but now we're hearing it. We're hearing it, Stunt. Wow. Yep. Prairie. Yep. 100% Kelly. Yep. This is great. Yep. And everybody, thanks. Also, I had to mute the music on that video. That's copyrighted music. So sorry that I have to do that. I already got 2 strikes now for that kind of stuff. So I got to keep that off. But I'll absolutely just only minimally do that. Amen, Sister Clay. Holy. Yes. I think the commissioner's got some emotional tearing going on. And this might be why he's focusing on the audience. You should be keeping it down, but I'm sure Paul Champ on day 1, if there was a crowd in there that were applauding those people, he probably would have let that one slide. But anyways, I don't know if there's a full 15-minute break, but we'll just keep going. And Governor of Canada is going to be coming up. They're going to be doing questions. What are those going to sound like here? It should be an apology, and then you should just go home. But we know that won't be the case. Yeah, Prairie, everybody, Mr. Green Thumbs, Ottawa, the Nuremberg Code. We'll get into that stuff later, Adam. I think we need to finish this discovery phase. It's going great. The discovery phase is going great. He's pissed in many different ways. I think it's more than just the crowd, Kelly. I think there's a lot going on in him. He got pushed a bit about being a liberal community and group. He got pushed with that because it is true. A liberal donor, Government of Canada, liberal, put him in. Yeah, and he's also hearing compelling stories and witness testimonies today. And he's also watching Government of Canada just flounder. He's a judge. He's not new to this. You don't want to witness anymore. Look, if I was the Government of Canada at this point, I would kind of try and backpedal the crap out of this, say we didn't know, we got bad information, fire a couple people in CSIS, and call it a day. Like Chris was saying during the lunch break, find a scapegoat, Blair, Marco, get rid of them, and then backpedal the crap out of this. I think it's horrible for them to try and continue, and there's going to be about 3 or 4 weeks of more of this. Yeah, Stunt. And by the way, Stunt, you missed the announcement. I'm jumping on a plane. I'm heading out to Ottawa. I should be out there the weekend of the 12th, 13th, and I'll be there till the inquiry's done. So I'll definitely be there for Trudeau, et cetera, et cetera. So look out for that, Stunt. I'll come see you. It was the applause. Yeah, it was the applause. Yeah, and it was the 4th time it broke out. The first time, it kind of seemed like everybody was cool with it. Second time, the commissioner said, guys, no more. We can't do that. Third time, stern warning. We're going to clear this out if that happens again. 4th time, we went on a break. And what he's going to try and navigate now is the appearance of being aggressive against supporters. Isn't this why we're here? Government official being too aggressive? This is a micro version of it, sure, if he kicks him out. But he's probably trying to balance that one in his head right now, because what's he going to come back with after this break? Is he clearing it out? Or is this one last warning because they tried to stop themselves at the last one? Or is it just going to be a couple people who voluntarily leave because they're just too emotional right now? I'd like to see the public stay, of course, as many of them as possible, of course. And I certainly don't want them upsetting him, because it's very exciting. Good thing he can't get my audio, because he would have disconnected me. I'm clapping like crazy on this side too. Yeah, for sure, man. Very, for sure. Yeah, everybody's excited. For sure. You know, very, very few times in history will applause get you in trouble, but Bouncy Castle's got us in trouble too. So this is a anti-fun government. I told him before. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Kelly. This was the fourth warning. This was the fourth encounter, really. So we're going to see what happens now. 3 strikes, you're out. He gave a free one, so he let one slide. He also needs to establish that he does have a control. And also remember that Paul Champ thing. Hey, I didn't have this evidence before. Was this disclosed? And then putting up his hands like this really hurts me, because this doesn't look like a terrorist group anymore. Sorry, Paul. Truth hurts. Look on his face. Yeah, look, he's got a lot of emotions, Jennifer. A lot of emotions going through him. Look on his face. Shame on the peanut gallery. Gave me a good laugh. Yeah, but I think there's more behind those eyes right now. Kind of like that one witness when he realized the government lied to him. There's a lot going on in the commissioner's head, I believe. No, I don't know about that, Prairie, because he's been very open and allowed more. Oh, they're back. Let's go. Let's see what's going on here.
Order and Lord. The commission is reconvened. La commission reprend.
Okay, well, thank you for that indulgence. I've decided, hesitant, but I've decided not to clear the room at this point. I did notice there's a significant group that is, I think, doing its best to comply. But I am concerned. I mean, this is, I firmly believe this is an important process, and that it should be, as much as possible, respected. So we'll go ahead. I hope not to have more issues. So we were about to turn to some of the questioning. Are you okay to continue?
Yes. Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you. So the first is the Government of Canada, please.
Good afternoon, Ms. Belton.
Yeah.
My name is Andrew Gibbs, and I'm part of the council team for the Government of Canada. I have 2 quick areas of questions for you. The first area is with respect to, it was touched on a little bit with the Commission's counsel, with respect to some of the, I won't call them fights, but disagreements, as you indicated, amongst the leadership group. And in particular, with respect to the handling of money by Tamara Leach. Did you have concerns about the handling of money by Ms. Leach?
I understood Keith Wilson was directing her and taking care of it. He's a lawyer. There should be no concern.
Okay. So do you recall posting something on TikTok expressing concern?
The TikTok video was actually not even about Tamara. Everybody has taken that so out of context. The TikTok was regarding the Unified People of Canada, or whatever. I have an embassy. It's called the Canadian Embassy. This embassy was trying to associate with the convoy. I didn't know any of the organizers or if they were involved with Tamara. I know they had stated they were. I had never seen them before. I was trying more to denounce what they were doing. They had said they were advisors of Tamara. I was concerned over a comment in a car that had been made over spending money on a building. I did voice my opinion in the car that we were here to end mandates when we were done working with the government or getting our 5 minutes with them to speak with them, that we were planning on leaving. There was no long-term plan to stay.
Okay, if we can just call up the video, just to confirm for the record, it's pb.can.3401777.
Council, if you allow me a brief indulgence, we're just trying to resolve the hard drive issue. It'll be 2 minutes at
Okay.
most, if that's appropriate.
Thank you very much. And I only have one other question, and it's on a particular document. We were provided, the parties were provided with documents over the lunch break, about 216 documents that you had filed over the lunch break for us.
With my team, yes.
With your team? Okay, and so I've only gotten through some of them. There was one document in particular I'd like your help just to understand, so.
Welcome to my life. You guys threw a lot at me in a short period of time.
Yes, I think we're all in the same boat on that. If you can call up the video, please, the TikTok video.
It'll be just another 60 seconds. The videos right now are just about to be ready.
We've had to deal with a lot of documents, you can imagine.
Yes.
I could pull it up on my phone faster.
If council has any other documents in paper form, I do have those available.
The
at
other
your
document then is BRB 6062. Do you recognize this document?
Yeah, those were things that had been posted on a Telegraph site. Who posted them, I'm unaware. We were very concerned over safety of, protesters and stuff like that.
And for the sake of the commission and others in the room who are perhaps less familiar with Telegraph, I'm starting to figure out TikTok, but what is Telegraph?
It's a platform that steals a lot of space from my phone. That's about the best way to explain. It's pretty much just a messaging, a fast way of messaging through a group of a bunch of people.
And is it a secure messaging platform?
I have no idea.
Okay, fair. If you can focus in on the bottom left-hand corner, I believe it's item number 3.
Right.
There's a mention with respect to.
Excuse me, is there any way to enlarge that for those of us with poor eyesight?
Yes.
Thank you.
I may have another pair.
There's a reference to tow trucks, which is a common theme in the commission, before the commission. And I'm just, if we can perhaps shift a bit to the, oh, you can see it up here perhaps. Were you aware that people in the tow truck industry were being encouraged not to provide tow truck services to the police?
Not necessarily, but I understand they've been put in a very rock and hard place kind of position. Had I known they showed up to tow trucks, I wouldn't use their service. That's me. I'm sure a lot of other truck drivers would have felt the same.
So the message reads, the most strategic and effective way to protest once you arrive in Ottawa is absolutely nothing. park your truck on the road, turn off the engine and let it sit there. No tow truck company would dare tow it away. And if they do get it on video, get it on video and make sure everyone knows not to do business with them. Vote with your wallet. Does that capture the sentiment you just expressed?
We do that with lots of things. We don't like what Coca-Cola said. We don't buy Coke anymore. We don't like what somebody says about children or animals. We don't buy their product anymore. It's the same thing. Tow truck services are a product. If we don't like what they do, we don't have to buy their service.
So for them to assist the citizens of Ottawa and tow the trucks, or to assist the police and tow the trucks, that would result in not buying their services.
I wouldn't buy their service. They weren't supportive of Canadians.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, do we have the video now?
If you could just briefly repeat the document ID, I should be able to.
Yes, pb.can.4017777_rel. And for the record, Commissioner, I would have ended a lot earlier. I know I've burned a bit of my time in previous rounds, so this one I hope, here we are.
News out of Ottawa. Tomorrow's handlers or advisors have set up a permanent residence at St. Bridget's in Ottawa. That building's worth $5.2 million. I have no idea what the rent is, but I do remember sitting in a car with Sean, Tamara, a female family member of hers, her husband, and Chad Eros. Well, they laughed about spending $3.2 million of the truckers' money on the building beside the Swiss. You can look that up. It's still for sale. I looked it up in the car and didn't think it was very funny that they wanted to spend $3.2 million of the truckers' money on a building so they could continue to protest. I reminded them we were here to drop all mandates. And when the mandates were done, so were we. I wish I could say the news story is untrue, but it came from the mouth of Babes herself, the advisor to Tamara. It's pretty hard to deny when somebody puts you under the bus as being someone that was there to change political policy and was there for a political agenda. Tamara, when she joined up with us, agreed to only do a fundraiser. She then threatened me. She threatened others. And she obviously had an other agenda other than dropping the mandates and setting Canada free. As I said, it was more directed to St. Bridget's, but.
And you said she threatened you in the TikTok video.
She did.
And what was the nature of that threat?
The threat was that if I used my voice and did any more media, that she would include me in the lawsuit with the city of Ottawa.
And if you did not? If you were silent?
If I was silent, there was no if you're silent, but that was the threat.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Next are the convoy organizers.
Sir, I'm going to ask under, I can't recall the rule, but with respect to the order of examination, as we got the documents from this particular witness, several hundred of them, not until this afternoon, I do have concerns from the brief ones I've reviewed, and I have given a written objection to your counsel with respect to those. What I would like to do in the meantime, sir, is I would like your leave and approval to examine this witness following her paralegal examining her. I can tell you at this point, I don't have many questions for this witness at all. My concern is the beginning of a character assassination, as well as attacking my client, the corporation itself. And given what was just asked by the government of Canada and what was just said, I would like to sit back and see what the evidence is with respect to the character assassination evidence that I think this witness is intending to give before I do my examination, sir.
Okay, well, I'm not sure if we should be talking about character assassinations. Rather, they're some issues being raised. I think let's try and not inflame things and take one step at a time. So you'd like to defer at the moment, and maybe I can hear from.
I'm okay with that. I
Okay.
don't mind if we go first. I think that's what he's saying. That's okay.
Okay, so that should not be a problem. So let's go through the rest of the roster, and then we can get to that. Okay, so next to the Ottawa residents.
Good afternoon, Ms. Belton. My name is Paul Champ. I'm the lawyer for the Ottawa Coalition of Residents and Businesses, and I just have some questions for you further to your testimony today. You testified earlier, Ms. Belton, that it was not your intention to disrupt the lives of residents of downtown Ottawa. Is that right?
That's correct.
But you did recognize that the activities of the protests, the trucks taking up all of the streets and the horns and so forth did indeed disrupt residents who were living within the 6 or 8 blocks of those activities?
As did millions of Canadians that demanded people get vaccines and demand that they wear masks and demand that they be thrown to the ground. Yeah, I understood what had happened over the last 2 years, and I'm sorry they were affected for 3 weeks, but I suffered for 3 years. Well, 2 years.
And did you associate the people with downtown Ottawa with the government of Canada? Like, did you assume that these were federal government workers in some way who deserved that disruption?
No, that would be ludicrous.
Okay. And on your arrival in the city, we've heard some evidence about a strategy to gridlock the city. Can you tell us about that?
I wasn't part of that design.
What was the plan, as far as you understood, with the 400 plus semi-tractor trailer trucks converging on downtown? Where did you think they would go?
I understood there were 2 locations we were to go, but that the police had redirected us once we got together at the Arc. We started to hear concerns, and I believe the guys were working on it, doing whatever they could to deal with the logistics issues. I did not deal with the logistics issues in Ottawa.
You were a road captain managing the convoy of trucks from southwestern Ontario to Ottawa, is that right?
Yes, and I went where the police directed us, which was nowhere near your residence, by the way.
Sorry, what does that mean?
That means your residents were further north.
Right.
Ours were on the S-Town. There was no residence where we had been. We were in front of the War Memorial.
Right.
I believe that's the War Memorial.
There is. You would have seen the apartment buildings there right in front of your trucks?
No, it was further back.
Okay.
It was not right directly with the truck.
With respect to mask mandates, I understand your position with respect to vaccines. You're also opposed to mask mandates, is that right?
I'm not opposed to mask mandates. I'm opposed to women who are victims of violence to be forced to wear them or be thrown to the ground.
Were people in restaurants and stores throwing people to the ground? Is that what you observed?
I observed video from Canadian Tire and Costco, both, where securities threw people to the ground. Also, a woman in BC that had no arms from the elbow down was refused service at a grocery store because she couldn't put a mask on. So the general public lacked empathy and sympathy for those that could not comply.
Did you have sympathy or empathy for people who were elderly or had medical conditions where they'd be susceptible to dying from COVID-19?
Absolutely, but we have never locked up the healthy, ever.
Now, with respect to the mask mandates, there was a lot of people in the convoy demonstrations who were very opposed to masks and mask wearing, correct?
Everybody had their own belief. Some wore masks, some didn't. There were people on the street that wore
Excuse me,
masks.
Can I object? That question doesn't go to the mandate that was established for that process. So why should she have to answer questions about that?
I don't even believe there was a mask mandate in effect at that time.
Indeed, there was. I'm not sure if I understand the objection. Should I?
The objection is that the protest was not about masks. It was about truckers' mandates for truckers for travel.
I think we've heard a great deal of evidence. If
Well,
you
no,
follow,
it-
sorry,
I'm-
I apologize.
I'm
Commissioner.
sorry.
I apologize.
There is a process. You speak through me. Ms. Scarf, I understand your point, but this is cross-examination, so I tend to give a little latitude. So if that, I think that question is within that latitude.
So, Ms. Belton, we've heard previous evidence from the police and others about some convoy protesters being very upset about people wearing masks and doing protests by going into stores and shops and restaurants in large groups without wearing masks. Did you observe those kinds of activities while you were here?
I observed maskless people. I didn't see protests. You might want to talk to those that caused the issue. That was not me.
So when you went into restaurants and shops, you wore a mask during the convoy protest?
Sir, I'm a victim of violence and I won't put a mask on to make you feel better.
So
So when I have to go through what I have to go through and take Ativan because you want me to wear a mask, and then you don't want me to drive a car however I live in the country, I take issue to that. I can't walk home. I don't live in a city center like you do. So yes, there are issues on both sides and there is no compassion on this side. That is the issue. You are painting this exactly like the Toronto Star did. You have no empathy for us.
So I take that as a no. You didn't wear masks when you went into stores?
No,
or
because
restaurants
I'm a
and shops?
female victim of violence and you need to respect that.
Okay. And did you observe others that you would go with into stores and shops wearing, not wearing masks, the people you were with?
That was asked and answered yes. The answer is yes.
And how would people respond when shop owners or staff, sometimes young teenage staff, would say, please wear a mask? What are some of the things you observed in those interactions?
I didn't have those interactions.
No one ever asked, can you please wear a mask or leave?
No, sir.
With respect to the money, so you were aware before you got to Ottawa that there was the large fundraiser. People were raising funds to support the truckers with covering their fuel and their food and so forth. You were aware of that?
Yes, Tamara did an amazing job at raising funds for us.
For sure. And but by the time you arrived in Ottawa, you recognized it was in the multi-millions that had been raised. Is that right?
That's correct.
And when you came to Ottawa, how long did you think you'd be staying?
24 to 48 hours.
And you required $10 million to stay 48 hours?
Canadians thought our voice needed to be heard and we needed to be supported.
So you were planning to leave in 48 hours because you assumed the government was going to agree with your demands?
We thought we would get a meeting.
Okay, so what changed? Why did you stay after 48 hours?
Because Justin Trudeau did exactly what he's done for the last 2 years. He literally came out and called us a whole bunch of names. I'm sorry, sir, but if I came and called you a whole bunch of names and said that your ideals and how you felt didn't mean anything to anyone, how would you feel? And that you losing your job, your income, your way to pay your wife's expenses to put food on the table for your children was irrelevant, how would you feel? So because of his actions, there are consequences, and that meant we stayed.
So Ms. Belton, then, if I understand your answer correctly, your plan was to come for 48 hours, assuming the Prime Minister would respond to your demands. But if he did not, you were going to stay until he did. Is that right?
I didn't say that.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying we were looking for a meeting.
And you were going to stay until you got your meeting?
Some sort of response would be good.
So you were going to stay until you got your meeting?
Or a response.
Now, you stayed in the Arc Hotel for most of the time?
Most of the time.
Who paid your hotel bills?
Joseph Bergault, from what I understand.
Okay. And there was also money raised in cash. You've told us in your testimony that in the Arc Hotel you were putting together envelopes to hand out to the truckers because many of them were living in their trucks, right?
That's where truckers live.
Yeah, they were living rough. That was very tough for them. And so you were putting together envelopes of $2,000 to assist them with their expenses, right?
Correct.
Now, the fuel that they were getting jerry cans of fuel and so forth to keep the trucks running, to keep warm, I understand, correct?
I understand the same.
Well, you were involved in it though, right? You were involved in the logistics.
Not everything.
Not everything, but you were involved in meetings where there's discussions about how to get the fuel to those trucks that were still running?
Yes, and I may have been dealing with something else at the time.
Right. And the fuel that they were getting that for free because that was being provided by someone else. Is that right?
I don't know that.
You weren't involved in those meetings?
I don't know who paid for what.
Okay. Now, the envelopes that you were handing out, how often did you do that? How many rounds were there of envelopes being handed out?
I know of 2 instances.
From the Ark Hotel?
Yes.
And then the Sheraton Hotel, they were also handing out envelopes, is your understanding?
You'll have to ask them.
Well, you testified, I believe, that you understood that the Sheraton was handing out.
Yes, that's the end of my understanding.
Fair enough. Well, just for your assistance, Mr. Barber testified about that, and indeed they were handing out.
And he was over at the Sheraton.
Right. And how would you know, or how did you keep track if truckers were getting the same, were getting envelopes from multiple groups?
We would ask them.
Okay.
Just a reminder, you're out of time, so if you could try and.
Don't I have 15 minutes, sir?
I had a note 10 minutes, so.
Well, if I may, Commissioner, I asked for leave for 5 extra minutes. I think I was getting some longer responses than anticipated.
I'll give you a few more minutes, but please get to the point.
Thank you, Commissioner. I believe I'm trying to be on point for my clients. Thank you. So with respect to honking, Ms. Belton, as a truck driver, you're aware air horns and train horns can be extremely loud.
Yes, they have a purpose. They're warning signals.
Yeah, their trucks are heavy. They can be dangerous vehicles and need very trained people to drive them. And if there's a hazard or something far away, you use those very loud horns to ensure people absolutely know that the truck is coming. There might be a risk.
So we're noticed, yes.
Yeah, but the sound of the horn, it can be dangerously loud if you continue to hold on it, correct?
So it could be a racetrack, an airport, several other things.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Now, but the horns were used by the trucks as a sort of a symbol of the protest throughout their time in Ottawa. Is that fair?
Well, I noticed on your lawsuit, you didn't list every child that came and honked a horn. They're also responsible, are they not?
So I take that as a yes, that you were aware that horns were used as a protest tactic?
They were used by the drivers. Some were having fun. I do know that Chris and the rest of them had talked. We needed to get the horns down to a minimum. We also needed to do some sleep time because some were somewhere in the city making louder noises. We did try to assist citizens.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we left you out to dry. We tried to assist citizens.
But Ms. Belton, there was a schedule of horns, was there not? There was a time they would start at 7 a.m. and go on throughout the day. Isn't that right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that you're wherever you were downtown, you didn't hear those horns?
I don't know of a schedule for the horns.
Okay. You say that you tried to control the horns, is that right? Is that what you're telling us?
I said organizers tried to control the horns. I never went out except for once during some speeches on the Hill where there was a vehicle that was making excessive noise. Actually, I think there were maybe 2 of them. I went up to both and I said, look, guys, that's enough. One complied, one didn't.
Some of the other organizers, though, very much supported the horns at any time. Is that right?
I wouldn't know. You'd have to ask the other organizers.
Well, in your discussions, like, for example, with Pat King was very much in support of the horns, was he not?
In emergency use?
In emergency use only?
From what I understood, his direction was, if you are in trouble, to honk your horn.
Okay. Just final point, Ms. Belton, you've testified that the mayor's deal that we've heard about, your understanding at the time was that that was fake news. It wasn't true. There was no deal. Is that right?
That's correct.
And the people that you knew and you were dealing with at the Ark Hotel opposed any deal in any event. Is that right?
No, I never said that.
So so you would have supported a deal if there had in fact been a deal to move the trucks to different locations, you would have supported that kind of a deal?
Absolutely. If we could have lessened the events to the citizens, absolutely. We weren't there to disrupt the citizens. We were there to have our government finally hear us after 2 years. I did my due diligence, sir. I wrote 32 letters. I went the right way and no one listened to me. So I don't know what you expect of me, but bringing my truck, well, I brought my pickup truck. I didn't bring a big truck. Did they notice me? Did somebody finally try and come and talk to me? The answer to that is still no. So what do I need to do to have my government that is elected to talk to me, to help me solve my problems? You had horn honking. I watched people get thrown to the ground. I watched children in parks getting thrown off their skateboards by police officers. No one helped those people. Matter of fact, people were supporting this kind of behavior. This is not the behavior of a free country.
So in your view, the people of downtown Ottawa were unfortunate casualties. If the Prime Minister had listened to you, what happened to them, those 3 weeks of sleeplessness and so forth, that wouldn't have happened. It's the Prime Minister's fault?
I feel for them. I honestly do. But I feel for those truck drivers that were about to not be able to feed their families. Many of those drivers had their whole families in those vehicles with no income. They lose their home. Kids are raised in a truck until school age. We had a 1-month-old baby that the city of Ottawa took fuel from, and we had to find accommodations so it didn't freeze to death. Which is more inconvenient? Not having fuel and watch your child freeze to death, or listening to a few horns? I'm sorry that your clients feel that they are entitled to $460 million for horn honking. Who was going to replace my income if I took a vaccine that killed me so my husband could survive? Not any one of your clients, I guarantee you.
But you inflicted that on my clients.
And
so
your
that you could
clients
get your
supported
message-
vaccine mandates.
You're well over your time, and I think it's turning into a debate, which I don't think it's constructive.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Okay, next call on the Ottawa Police Service.
I have no questions, sir. Thank you.
Okay, the Ontario Provincial Police. You're still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about this. I have no questions for the OPP.
Okay, thank you. Counsel for former Chief Slowly.
Good evening, Ms. Belton. Rebecca Jones for former Chief Slowly. Just a few questions for you this evening. You testified that you thought the group in Coots had a lot of gumption, right?
That's not the word I used in my video, but that's the word I can use here.
Okay. And I take it that's because they stayed despite police attempts to remove them from the border.
No, that was just in blocking a border completely, just doing that act. They were all in. They were all in.
Right. They maintained their blockade despite attempts to remove them.
I'm assuming so. I wasn't there.
Okay.
I do have to say the horse thing was brilliant. That was just the most beautiful scene I'd ever seen coming across.
You also gave evidence that Mr. Marazzo tried to put you in a box, right?
I believe I started that with Tamara and as well as Mr. Marazzo.
Okay, Ms. Leach and Mr. Marazzo. And by that, you mean, I take it, that they attempted to manage you somehow?
Manage me, distance me, I found my own way, and I found where I serve the public better, and that's from the heart and off the sleeve. So I found my place.
Right, okay, so can I take it then that you rejected or resisted those attempts to manage you and did your own thing?
Yes, I'm a truck driver, an independent truck driver, and a business owner, and I've been business owner several times. So yes.
Okay. And so I take it that if Ms. Leach or Mr. Marazzo told you how you should be protesting, you would have resisted that as well.
It depends on what their message was. If their message was incorrect, you'd be correct about that.
Right. So if they told you it was time to leave Ottawa and that in your view was incorrect, you would have resisted that.
Not likely.
Okay. And if they told you that there were too many horns and asked for your help to stop the horns, I take it your view would have been it's up to the individual protesters to determine how they protest.
I assisted when asked.
When asked, and I suggest to you when you agreed with what you were being asked.
You can suggest that, but you weren't there.
Okay, so you disagree with me. You would have gone along with what?
I went along with a lot of the things that made sense.
Right.
If it didn't make sense, I mean, horn honking, I can understand why people want that reduced. Absolutely. However, when the government goes and says you can't honk your horn, but we want you to leave, they obviously didn't read the Schedule 1 of a truck, which means you have to honk your horn in order to leave the city. So what was it? Did you want us to leave or did you want us to stay? We couldn't complete a Schedule 1.
Okay. And just a couple more things. We've heard some testimony about the swarming of police officers. Did you witness that?
I did not witness that.
Okay. And do you have any information? I take it you didn't witness it, but do you have any information about which groups were involved in that?
I do not.
You also testified that Pat King was the lead on media in January, correct?
That's what he agreed to. He agreed to put out media for us, to put us through to his followers that would allow us a broader reach. Just kind of like, I don't know, when you do a newspaper ad, except it was free. So thank you, Pat.
Okay. And did Mr. King, to your knowledge, did he continue to take a lead role in the information that was being disseminated into February?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. King took on a media lead role in January in terms of giving information to the public or other protesters about the convoys, right?
Right. He also had his own podcast.
Sure. And my question was only, did that sort of lead role continue into February?
I know some of the organizers asked him not to do so much. I do remember in one news conference that Pat and I were in together, that my job was literally to make sure that Pat didn't ramble. Pat likes to go on, and my whole job was to sit there and nudge him if he decided to ramble.
Got it. Final question. You referred to bans that were put in place on your Facebook account, right?
Yep.
Over time. And was that on the basis that Facebook said you were spreading disinformation?
Yes, but it was true information. They just didn't like the truth in Canada.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Next is the CCLA, please.
Good evening. I'm going to be asking my questions via Zoom. Can you see me?
I can.
Perfect. My name is Eva Krajewska, and I'm counsel to the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. And I just have a few questions with respect to the freezing of your bank accounts. I know you already spoke about this in the examination conducted by Commission Counsel. And I understand from that evidence that you learned from a phone call you received from RBC that your bank accounts were frozen on February 17th.
That's correct, but it wasn't from RBC. It was actually from a police officer.
Okay, I see. So the telephone call that you received on that day was from a police officer that your bank accounts were frozen?
Yes, when I called it at a later date, it's a police officer.
And do you know whether that police officer was a police officer with the Ottawa Police Service, the RCMP, or the OPP?
I believe he was Toronto service or from the Toronto area.
And the police officer told you that your bank accounts could be unfrozen once you informed them that you left Ottawa. Is that fair?
That's what he stated.
And did you check at the time that your bank accounts had in fact been frozen?
I was already informed prior to his call by my husband.
So your husband called you to let you know that he was not able to access your joint bank accounts?
His business account, which had my name on it to pay for expenses, his and my joint household expense account, as well as my personal bank accounts, were all frozen. He informed me at approximately 8 a.m. Could be sooner than that. And I got the call at 10:04 by the person claiming to be from the Royal Bank.
So they claimed to be from the Royal Bank, but you believe that they were a police officer? Am I getting that right?
Now I believe they were a police officer because I called the number afterwards.
You
Few
called the
months
number
later,
afterwards?
not directly, a few months later.
A few months. Oh, so they left you a telephone number to call back at?
No, I screenshotted the message when they called. I screenshotted their phone number.
And you called them back later, and then how did they identify themselves when you called back later?
I'd have to recall the number. Would you like me to try?
No, I can't ask you to try that now. I'm just asking, how do you know that when you called back a few months later that they were a police officer?
Because they had no connection with the Royal Bank.
When you spoke to them a few months later?
I did not speak to them. I called them back and got a message machine. It stated their name and no association with the Royal Bank.
So it was not, for example, a corporate voicemail where the person would answer, "I'm so-and-so at the Royal Bank of Canada at this branch."
You're correct.
Okay. And you said that your bank accounts were frozen for a period of time, but you said you don't recall for how long because your husband manages the banking. Is that fair?
That's fair. Yeah, he dealt more with that. I was dealing with, of course, other situations, other people not having money, trying to help truckers get home. The freezing of the bank accounts created a larger problem than solving the problem.
Okay. And in terms of the length of the problem, can you provide your best estimate of whether your bank accounts were frozen for a period of days or whether it was a period of weeks after February 17th?
I can't nail down a time for that. I know it was a very long time that I did not have access to funds, or it felt that way.
And do you know that because by March 1st, you had a mortgage payment due that you weren't able to make?
That's right. A friend went and made that mortgage payment for us. They went and deposited the money for us. So that would be correct.
Okay. And so can you just elaborate for me how on a personal basis, the freezing of the bank accounts affected you with respect to your personal bank accounts, other than a payment of your mortgage?
Other than the $100 that was gifted to me by another participant, I couldn't put fuel in my pickup truck. I lived 9 hours from Ottawa, so I couldn't get home. I couldn't pay for my husband's diabetic medication. We were looking for solutions to that because the money we had to decide what that was going to pay for. The one unfrozen bank account, which wasn't a main bank account. That's not where we put all our expense money. So my expenses are now he's trying to cover his expenses. He's trying to cover his business expenses. He's trying to cover everything out of a very small account that's just meant for him to do with, buy groceries or food in the US. Our lifestyle is a little different, and it's very hard for people to understand that do not truck. There is usually a joint account to pay things that either husband or wife can do because we never know when we'll be home. my estimate time away is approximately 289 days a year, equivalent to 4.5 trips around the earth in a year. So we need to work together to make sure bills are paid.
So if I can summarize, your access to the joint bank account that you have with your husband is essential to manage your household finances because of the time that you spend away from home.
That's correct.
And the only bank account that you had access to was the personal bank account of your husband's that was not frozen.
I did not have access to that. That is his personal bank account. So he had access to money on the road. I was in Ottawa 9 hours from my home, and I had access to nothing.
Can you, I asked you about your experience personally with respect to the freezing of your personal bank account.
You're well over your time, so you're going to have to wrap up, please.
Okay, so this is going to be my last question, and I apologize, Commissioner. Can you just elaborate on how it affected your business to have your business account frozen?
How it affected our business?
Correct.
We ended up having people, we actually, I believe, deferred the payment a month. We had to call and defer the payment.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. These are my questions.
Okay, thank you. Next is the Democracy Fund and JCCF.
Hey, Mr. Commissioner, Ms. Belton. My name is Antoine Dailly. I'm counsel to Citizens for Freedom, representing the peaceful demonstrators in Windsor, Ontario. I just have a few questions to clarify some of your earlier testimony. The first TikTok video that was played today, the one that you indicated was broadcasted while you were detained at secondary at one of the Windsor Borders crossings. Was that the Ambassador Bridge you were being detained at?
Yes, not Blue Water. Yes, it was Windsor Ambassador Bridge, yeah.
Perfect. And what was the approximate date of that video?
November 17th. It's either the 16th or the 17th.
That's 2021 or 2020?
2021.
2021. And you had indicated in your testimony that you were afraid that, Windsor Police would be involved, other policing agencies. Did other law enforcement actually have become involved in that interaction with you, or was it just CBSA that day?
On that day when I crossed in, I tried to explain to the Windsor Border CBSA agent that I could not wear a mask, that my visor that I usually used had been broken during the trip, but he would open the window and go, "Put on a mask," and he would slam it. Then he would open it up and yell, "Put on a mask," before I could answer again and slam it. We finally got to the, "She's not got one." And I tried to explain it was not good enough. He was on some sort of power trip, and he told me to enjoy my time with the Windsor Police. I took that as a threat to my safety and security as a Canadian entering my country.
But when you entered, did you actually have an interaction with Windsor Police on that particular day?
No, my interaction first was with a CBSA officer that was yelling at me to get back into my truck. I had waited a long time for them to come see me, so I was like, have we gone back to the old rules where you got to go in? So I went to go in, and I was yelled to get back in my truck. I got back in my truck. I did as I was told. And then I had the officer ask me if PIAC had called me. I believe at that point they hadn't. The second time they had, PIAC said they were waiting on police to arrive to issue a $6,000 fine or of that nature.
And just for clarity, PFAC here, you're talking about the public health agencies. Is that
That's what they
correct?
call them, yeah.
Okay, perfect. You also indicated in your earlier testimony that you had witnessed a CBSA strike a number of years ago and that you had been left to sit on the bridge for over 2 hours.
Yes, sir.
Do you recall about when that occurred?
I actually have it within my files. I believe it was 2020, possibly August. It's in my files. I don't have it right in front of me.
Okay, and that was the Ambassador Bridge as well then?
I was on the Blue Water at that point. The CBSA strike was more than one bridge. It was unilateral. It was all over the news.
Okay, and when you were on the Blue Water Bridge that day, your truck was at a complete standstill on the bridge, as in no traffic was entering Canada through that port of entry because of the actions of the CBSA officers. Is that correct?
It was entering almost in reverse mode. It was extremely slow. I sat on the bridge. I looked down, and from my location, you can see their parking lot. In front of their parking lot, they had their picket signs. They had approximately 3 or 4 agents who walked, pointed at the trucks on the bridge, turned around, walked backwards, walked so slow to their gates. I'd never seen them walk so slow before. You'd think they were on vacation.
Did not appear that they were concerned in speeding up the access.
They did not care about Canadian truck drivers or American truck drivers coming in, not one bit. My buddy was there for 14 hours. A lot of these drivers, especially for the garbage removal, go in and out a couple of times a day. That could have meant that any one of those truck drivers didn't have a full supply of medication on them. They didn't care what happened to those truck drivers. Canadian government didn't care what happened to those truck drivers. Doug Ford didn't care what happened to those truck drivers. CBSA's top management didn't care what happened to us either.
Understood. And you had indicated that you had received a report that one of your colleagues had been stuck at one of these ports of entry for 14 hours. Was
Yes.
that also at the Blue Water Bridge, or was that the Ambassador Bridge?
He was also at Blue Water.
Understood. Thanks. Just turning to the convoy that it sounded like you led from Sarnia to Ottawa. Can you remind me again the precise date that you left Sarnia and would have passed through London, Ontario?
We left on the 27th.
27th. And for those less familiar with the structure of the highways in the area, is it accurate that the 402 merges into the 401, either westbound or eastbound, right outside of London?
That's correct.
And that juncture where the 402 and the 401 connect is about 200 kilometers away from Windsor, Ontario?
That's correct.
Were any of the trucks from the convoy you were leading from Sarnia directed by you at that junction to head towards Windsor, so westbound, instead of towards Ottawa, eastbound, on January 27th?
No, sir.
A subsequent video was showed earlier today in which I believe is one of your TikTok videos where you're speaking about being threatened by CBS agents, being extensions of the federal government. You mentioned a group that was carrying out some threatening activity, and I'm not sure on the pronunciation, but was this Antifa? Is this the same group that was referenced earlier today by Mr. Charland?
I don't know what was referenced earlier today.
Okay, understood. And a final question here is, were you physically present in Windsor at any point between January 23rd and February 14th of 2022?
I'm sorry, the date again?
January 23rd and February 14th of 2022.
I may have been there on the 23rd. I would have to recheck my logs. I did come in late into the convoy. I was having issues with my load. When I had left to Alberta, I ended up being delayed, and I did arrive back to the convoy late to get started. I had a gentleman by the name of Carl start my Sarnia, so I may have been a day late, which meant I would have gone there, parked, dropped my trailer, and then joined the convoy.
And so on January 27th, then when the convoy left Sarnia, you were not with the convoy at that point. You joined them at some point.
No, I was only a day behind.
So then on January 27th, you started in Sarnia, is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Perfect. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, it's Ms. Belton's representative. So do you have any questions or has everything been covered?
No, everything hasn't been covered.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, first off, the original map. I believe the commission number is BRB 50217.
This is
If it's helpful to council, is there a place where you'd like to start or would you like to just start?
There is a dialogue on it. You need to play it. Yeah.
The first one is not available to me. This was the other one that the printing came out a little blurry, so we didn't use it as much. We did put some notations on it, but this is.
Can you start it at the beginning? We missed some of it. It was sort of muted. Okay, thank you.
This is the secondary map that we had in Ottawa. The first one is not available to me. This was the other one that the printing came out a little blurry, so we didn't use it as much. We did put some notations on it, but this is the map that we had in our boardroom. And this is the Transportation Master Map Plan 7, or Map 7 from the City of Ottawa website. It was blown up. That was supplied to us by Andrew Pelozzo. So on January 28th, the Southwestern Ontario GTA and Niagara region arrived in Ottawa. We were led down the Ottawa River Parkway by the police. They told us to take this route, even though it was a non-truck route. And the Carling exit onto the Ottawa Parkway was very difficult for trucks to make, bobtail and with trailers. The police had it barricaded and removed the barricades in front of me to allow us to go onto this jam. We arrived here and were brought over by the War Museum. The police had a blockade right here and wouldn't not allow trucks to go up onto Wellington. On January 29th, when the Western group came in, led by myself, Mike, as the second pilot car, and Chris Barber as the lead truck, came up onto the Ottawa Parkway. Police then moved their barricades, which were barrels, they were barrel barricades, and allowed Chris to bring his truck up onto Wellington, approximately this area right here, just before the Parliament Hills. He was pretty much across from the parking area, because I remember parking close to there. They did not let the rest of the trucks come. They all remained behind the barricades that were put there in place by the City of Ottawa Police. Trucks were on both sides. A lane was open on both sides. They used the center medium for their kitchen, and along the sides of each roadway, each direction, is where the cars and trucks parked. The full intention with this map was to make sure that we left lanes open and emergency routes available for quick access for police. We knew that there were several hospitals or care homes in the area. That was very important to us to leave those open. There was Elizabeth Briere Center right up here. And we wanted this route straight here, straight down, open, as well as through to Rito and down to the 417 open. It was imperative. It was very important for us to leave access for emergency vehicles. I had a friend who was a resident at Elizabeth Briere, so that was very important to me. And being a long-term resident of the Ottawa area and a former city employee, safety is definitely top priority for myself. And we worked as a team to make that happen. So we were aware that there was a lot of vehicles in the area. We were trying to solve the parking problem and get more trucks off the street, making almost 2 lanes open. Some places we succeeded around the Bank Street area, lower Bank Street area. We were able to do that. So we were looking for other parking. The problem was getting them in and out of areas. So we knew there was parking down here. We knew there was parking over here. But to get big trucks in and out was an issue, and to make sure that the police didn't block off the access so trucks could come and go at their will should they decide that they wanted to leave. We also had notes on this map you'll see over here at the side. These notes are of leaders, excuse me, and their designed roles. The first one we have would be Pat. It states right here that we knew right from the beginning, because this map was done within the first 2 days of being in Ottawa. So approximately between the 29th and the 2nd of February, I would say. Approximately the first 2 days we started working on this. To the best of my knowledge, this map was done within the first few days of us being in Ottawa. We were working on a smaller printed map, but Andrew, of course, provided these for us, which was a great help. As you can see, Pat was on here. This is not my writing. To the best of my knowledge, this is Tom Marazzo's writing, but he would have to confirm that. Pat was here for video information and output of social media. That was his primary goal. However, Pat was very, very instrumental in helping us solve problems with great suggestions for the truck drivers. As you see, Tamara had Tamara Leach, and that was Pat King, sorry. This is Tamara Leach. She has no dedicated spot to her name. However, when we were on a Zoom call, approximately between January 12th and January 14th, her role was designated as social media and fundraising, crowdfunding. This is Chris Barber, PR, talking to the troops. He did a very, very good job at talking to a lot of the truckers and getting his picture taken and being there for media shoots. These marks represent the amount of people I was giving credit to for bringing trucks here. And I have forgotten a lot now that I look at this map. There are far more than 8. And then we had 4 more, of course, those were the key. 8 were the 4 starters. So that would be myself, Chris Barber, Pat King, and James Bowder. Then we had 8 more underneath. Those would be ones that we had brought into the organization through social media calls. However, we touched base. The BC organizer is listed here as Sean. This is not the same writing. I'm not sure who wrote this on the map, because the BC coordinator that I was dealing with was Colin, and his last name escapes me at the moment. We also have it as all of the West as Chris. Somebody wrote that in there. West was, there was a lady by the name of Kathy. There was Chris. There was James Bowder. I don't know Kathy's other name, her last name. Southwest, they have Ben. That would be myself. Ben, I don't have his last name. He's ADD Trucking. We have myself and Tim and Harold Yonker. The GTA was David Steinberg. Steenberg. We also have in Ontario, we have Mike Benson and Andrew Dieter. Those were also associated with myself. Quebec was Joni. Not sure of her last name. I know it starts with a P. The PC coordinator was Jonet. Her last name, to the best of my knowledge, is Pacat. I haven't checked my emails to give you that information 100%. I apologize. New Brunswick was PEI. Leanne, Indy, and Ben. I have no idea what these two indications are on the map at this point.
Okay. So I wanted to also have you indicate what transpired to change the leadership from what you've described there to what it ended up being.
That would be the direction of Freedom Corp and Keith Wilson, JCCF, I assume.
You have a number of emails with interactions between various members.
With Chad.
Yeah. Okay. Can you bring those up?
I have no idea what they're entitled.
Identify the number.
So,
Do we have the number for that?
Sir, I'm going to rise at this
Where is
point.
it?
All of this happened after the fact, well after the events in question. And there's actually, as I understand, also some potentially privileged records in here. And I would like. I would
Privilege would
submit-
mean I would have had to
Excuse me,
sign on a
excuse me,
privilege.
Excuse me, we're just,
Yeah.
we
I have the
worked through
numbers.
me, sorry.
So, sir, with respects to relevance and materiality, I think that if you gave a direction that this witness is limited with respect to giving evidence regarding the time frame up to and including, say, after the EA was no longer invoked, I believe that would be appropriate, sir.
That's okay with us. Our information is prior to the EA invocation.
Okay, because I think, as is probably obvious, we're dealing with the Declaration of the Emergency
Yeah,
Act and
That's fine.
so on. There may be things after, okay.
Yeah,
so
I'm not
that's-
talking about that. Actually, could you give a timeline where you saw difficulties begin? And then just, we have the numbers. So when you indicate what document, we have the numbers.
Those documents were provided to me afterwards,
Yes, okay.
but they
Yeah.
said they don't want anything outside after that time frame.
Well, it's information about what happened in that
Right, but they don't
document.
want all the truth out. They only want selected truth out.
I know, but he didn't confine us to.
I think he
if
did
we-
confine it.
Again, it's turning into discussion. If it relates to events that occurred before the invocation, that's can be relevant. I don't know if it is,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, we're
ultimately,
okay.
we're concerned about the declaration of the emergency and the organization of the convoy and its function or what happened in Ottawa. And if it's related to that, then tell us what it is and we can then think about whether we go to the documents. But I don't know what we're talking about, so.
Okay, it's documents that were generated before the EA. But we can just talk about the meetings, what was happening when there was
One of
a
the
shift.
first meetings that I went into was with Tom Quiggins, Chris, TBOF, James Pelozzo. Don't believe there were any lawyers present at that time. Tom Quiggin had come in and looked at Tamara and said, "This is all because of you. I asked Chris to deal with that and to solve that issue so that people understood that that was not exactly true. Her fundraising did amazing. She did a great job, but she did not start the convoy. And I didn't want that to go on. That fake kind of presentation, I guess. I don't know. I want it to be cleared up. It ended up that Chris asked me to not divide, not to create an issue, to go along with things. And we repeatedly had those conversations amongst us, Chris and I, for me repeatedly asking him to clear up this fake narrative that had been presented and that just kept being presented.
Okay, also, you had mentioned to me a meeting that you went to in which your character was assaulted.
That would have been on a Zoom call thereafter, though.
Oh, was on a Zoom call?
Thereafter.
After the emergency?
Yeah, but well after.
Okay, we'll leave that one.
That's why I was saying some of that is well
Yeah,
after.
some of it. Okay, so the emails concerning the new leadership, like who became the leader or who directed the convoy, at what point can you pinpoint the period of time, like roughly, not you don't have a specific date because it's a process, but at what point did you recognize that it had been taken over?
As soon as we got to Ottawa, there were issues and they continued and started to magnify.
Okay. At any point, did you feel that you were specifically undermined and targeted?
Yeah, it just seemed like I provided the lawyers with a complete list of organizers. Not one of those names showed up on the Freedom Convoy documents for the NFP. My name didn't show up on there. I understood that the Freedom Convoy Corp dealing with the monies that we had raised as a team, and we were to be a team. My name didn't show up. I was obviously being omitted.
Okay. Who do you regard as the, how do you say, the new leader? Like who was giving direction after you guys were kind of
It
whatever?
seemed we took a lot of direction from Keith Wilson.
Okay. Do you have any evidence for that?
Just in whatever documentation that I've provided.
Okay, so can we be specific? Just like I've got. the
Again, that would
title.
be after the EA.
I've got the titles and then there's.
There was a video where he's telling people to come to Ottawa. I do not know what video that is.
Okay, and there's, I don't know the number for the, just a sec.
I'm looking for it. Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just, it may be helpful if you sort
Okay,
of
we-
summarize what it is that you're trying to give as terms of the story, and we
okay.
can leave the documents, they're in
Oh.
the record, and if
Yeah.
need be, we'll turn them up, but
Okay, I know what it is. It's an interview with the commission and Keith Wilson, I'm sorry, Keith Wilson.
so it's Keith Wilson's witness statement, is that
Yes.
what you're referring
Yes,
to?
with the commission.
So the document ID for that would be WTS 58. I'm not sure how many zeros. I would note that that's, sorry, WTS 60 is 58. It is a interview statement that would require leave.
Okay. So is that what you want to refer to? Is that, or is there a need for that?
Is there a need for the document?
Yeah,
Yes,
okay, well,
Is
let's,
it this one that we're referring to?
yes. Can you indicate the three places that we wanted to focus?
Okay, if you could turn up the witness statement, let's see where we go with this.
Yeah, we'd like it brought up and she's going to identify. What's that? Assistance. This is the kind of thing she needs assistance for. Or do you have it? You have it. Okay.
So which page are you looking at?
Starts on page 2.
And on the second paragraph.
Second paragraph, page 2?
Yeah.
Yes.
Paragraph, which paragraph was it? 4?
Page 2, paragraph 2.
Okay, so and
Oh, yes. Okay. That paragraph, do you want me to read it or do you want to read it?
If you wouldn't mind, please.
Okay. Wilson found the TBOF leaders in the Arch Hotel and informed them that the Freedom Convoy organizers would be doing the press conference. Leach told Wilson that she was not in a position to respond to all the questions that may be posed by the press. Wilson agreed to lead the press conference. He decided the event needed to be focused with a clear message. Around this time, Wilson met with Daniel Bulford. Bulford suggested he speak at the press conference about the convoy's work liaisoning with the police regarding safety and emergency vehicle access. Wilson agreed Bulford should also speak at the press conference. So the position is that that statement indicates that he's taking a leadership role with regard to the members of the Freedom Convoy.
Okay. Okay, well, I think it should come from the witness, I
Okay,
think. So
yeah,
what are you trying to, why are you referring to this comment then?
Well, Keith Wilson was writing the speeches and directing what we said. Many times he came into a conference room and he goes, let's get the messaging straight. And he said, what are we here for? Mandates. What mandates? All mandates. This was the message that started the convoy. So was he out of touch with what was going on? Did somebody not fill him in? This message was already in place.
Okay. So anything further?
There was one document there that he distributed to everyone with regard to persons coming in on plane. What's the name of that document?
I believe he says that in this one as well. I don't think we marked it, but he did make statement that he came aboard on a flight with others that he picked up along the way.
Okay, what did that letter say? It was addressed to all of the convoy organizers, was it?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, but if we're still on this document.
The one about the planes now.
What page are you referring to?
We're trying to go to another document.
I'm thinking.
I don't know where the document is. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm not sure which one we're referring to. This is why I had some help from Rebecca, because everything got jumbled this morning when it was sent back to us. I have no idea where my documents are at this point. I find it extremely unfair that this has happened. If they would have left the naming that I had on the documents, I would have been able to pull these up for you, and we could have referenced, and Rebecca and I, or Jane and I would have been able to be more effective up here.
Okay, well, maybe somebody can help her.
If we're able to get the title of the original document or more information about it, we can try to assist in identifying it.
As I understand it, it's a notice.
Rebecca has a list of the documentation. If she could come up here, she can show me what it is that we're pulling, if that would be all right with everyone.
Or if I can see a copy, I can take a look.
Okay.
Yeah, we can even.
Go ahead.
I need to go and speak with her. She has the marked documents.
Okay, well, we go, come on up. Let's just get it done.
Thank you.
We're here to move it along and all the help we can get.
Okay, so. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. He's in the mark.
Is that it? She's saying no.
Yes, this one. Right here.
What is that?
Okay. Is that what you read?
Yeah.
Did you read it though? Do you want me to read it? I don't think you said it. So just read what it says. Do you want me to read it for you?
I'll do my best. Jane, it says, on February 2nd, Wilson traveled to Ottawa on a chartered flight with Eva. I'm sorry, Eva, I'm sorry. And I'm going to butcher your last name, so I'm just not going to do it. Dwayne, Leach, Chad Eros, and others, Wilson and Eva boarded the flight in Edmonton, and others were picked up along the way. That's not what you were looking for?
You're gonna have to speak in
On
that.
plane,
Yeah.
the one,
The email where we were instructed not to talk about anything to do with the plane?
yes, that's the one
Right.
I'm sorry, I didn't make it clear.
That was a signal message.
Yeah, do we have it?
I don't know what it's been numbered, and I'm not.
Okay, maybe you can just testify to that, if you remember now which one that was.
The email was to a group of us in regards to they had found out somehow about the plane, and they were curious whether the lawyers and Chad and Mr. Leach had come in and followed mandate requirements. I didn't think it was a big deal, but we were told we were not allowed to talk about it.
Oh, who were you told that by?
Keith Wilson.
Okay. Are there any other
Mr.
emails?
Chair, may I stay here to help her read her documents?
Yes.
As requested? May I have a chair, please? Thank you very much.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry. Is there anything further you?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we'll leave that. She had some other ones, but okay, there was just one more item. Actually, two more items, but one, the CB, what is it? CB, okay, now I'm frustrated too. CBSA, the letter that you wrote to the CBSA and their response.
Right. We don't have it.
You can just speak to
Okay, the CBSA letter came in December, and it basically made no accommodations for those that couldn't wear a mask, those that they just wouldn't make accommodations. And I had PIAC there at one point in February of 2021. And the woman's name was Jessica, and she had given me exemptions. My company that I was working for at the time even wrote a letter based on her name on the face mask requirements from PIAC that they give you. She wrote her name, said that if there was any problems, just to refer to her. That never happened. So every time I went through, there was an issue. It depended on what agent I got, whether the issue was a small issue or a massive blown out fight between CBSA and myself.
Okay, and you wrote a letter of complaint? to
My
CBSA?
husband actually took the initiative because I was done. I didn't plan on staying in. I didn't plan on breathing. I couldn't do it.
And further.
I plan to end my life and give him everything, but for some reason I was here to cause a ruckus, I guess, and I couldn't do it as fast as I would like to. My husband went ahead and filed the filed the complaint first on my behalf. CBSA wouldn't allow it. I told them that I was afraid of repercussion at the border, that this would continue to strain the relationship between myself and CBSA. And after their letter of basically not providing accommodation, following the rules of Ontario, which were if you didn't have to be masked if you actually had a valid medical reason. I think going back to a terrible time in your life is a valid medical reason. They minimized the suffering and the experience with them at CBSA. And I wrote them back and I said, please don't underestimate what you've done. I had at that point started on a downward spiral of rapid weight loss. My southbound trips were fine, but my northbound trips were unable to sleep, tossing and turning, not eating, losing rapid weight, shaking, driving up to CBSA. At first, it was just a little bit. Then it became more and more strenuous, more stressful, and it just started compiling. Shaking, driving from Texas to Ontario, and actually being so overwrought on the second day that I had to take a day, and I couldn't move. I couldn't get out of bed. I had to take a day, kind of get my stuff together and continue on. So it was a very traumatic experience, although CBSA thinks they were just doing their job.
So after you got the response back from CBSA, you wrote to various MPs and other officials. Can you state the names of those individuals and roughly what you were asking them for or to do?
I was asking for help. Help. I wanted help. I wanted someone to help me. Some of those messages, I believe, start with 911, help, I need help. Randy Hillier, Roman Baber, Leanne Rude, maybe even Monty McNaughton. I know there were letters to him. I went federal, I went provincial. Nobody listened. Nobody helped. I don't want to listen to your staff member when I'm having an issue that is life-changing. I want to talk to you. I want to sit down with you, whether it's with a Tim Hortons coffee or a bottle of water, and let's figure out the problem and find some solutions. But those weren't available.
How many of those emails did you send?
Approximately 32.
Okay, so I just have one last statement. You indicated to me that your grandfather had given you an explanation of the conditions under totalitarianism or communism. You recounted that to me. Can you recount it here?
Yeah, it was November 11th. I was 14 and I was visiting. And being a teenager with attitude, I sat while the services started in the minute of silence. My grandfather grabbed me by the back of the shirt, by the back of the collar, lifted me up, and he said, "You'll stand here and you'll respect our dad." Afterwards, after the time had passed on the television, I remember we were watching it on television. I went to sit back down and he made me stand for a full minute. When we were done, I was ordered to go to the kitchen table. I sat with him while he explained to me what it was like to be in Nazi Germany. He told me about the snitch lines, that if you wanted your neighbor's piano and they weren't going to give it to you, you just called up the Nazi snitch lines and they would take care of the family and you would go and get their belongings. He talked to me about children who would go to school and the teachers would ask, "What did your parents talk about last night?" And they would come home and find their families murdered because they said bad things about Hitler. The warning signs were here. We had people snitching on people at Christmas time enjoying family members because there may have been 6 people in a home that person doesn't own. And then we watched Quebec police officers pull people out of those homes, throw them to the ground and arrest them because they were spending time with their family. We were headed down the road that my grandfather talked to me about. I don't want to live that way. I want to live the way we have been in Canada. I want us to be united again. I want us to look at people and smile as we don't walk down the street. That works everywhere but the GTA. I mean, I want us to get back to where we were in 2019. That's all I want. It's not that much to ask for. We're not that far away. And we need to stop yelling at people and dividing and pitting each other against each other. We have a prime minister that was a former drama teacher, and all he has done has made Canada full of drama. He's very good at what he does.
Okay, so that was the last question. Thank you.
Conclude, do you believe that the Canadian Bill of Rights will help maintain our freedom?
I'm not
Providing-
sure that's relevant to what we're doing here, but I'll let it go. But please, we've heard your message. I think.
Yes, I understand.
clear.
Providing it's allowed to be addressed in courts, I do believe that it's still valid and still exists.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you.
No questions, sir, for the Freedom Corp.
Okay, I have just one little, trying to understand my notes, so it shouldn't be long. You talked about ADT Canada asking you or contacting you about Windsor, and my note isn't clear.
ADT Canada was a company. I just got the ADT phone number. I know Ben was one of the heads, had owned the company, but the number came from the company number. So I can't recall who I was talking to at that time. It very may well have been Ben, but I'm not sure.
And what did they ask you?
If the Windsor border should be blocked, and absolutely not, I said.
And I thought there was something, and I have a note about slow roll.
Yeah, continue to slow roll, which is what the whole convoy was originally built on, was that we would slow roll in a convoy together across Canada.
Okay, so this call was from ADT Canada, someone, and it had to do with the Ambassador Bridge, was it? Or was it the Blue Water?
It was Ambassador.
It was Ambassador. And you said slow roll. So would this have been before the Ottawa, the 28th, or just trying to get the date of
No,
this
no,
call?
this would have been before the Windsor blockade happened. I was asked, should it happen? And I said, no.
You said slow roll.
Slow roll,
Okay.
as had we been. What happened was a lot of the convoy came to Ottawa, but in each region, there were people that couldn't make that trip. So they continued supporting us in their region.
Okay. And I'm just trying to understand also about your pickup truck in Ottawa. You said you turned around when you got here and went, and because you had a pickup truck, you could turn around and go to Arnprior, I think it was?
Yeah, I did go. I went to Ottawa West first to a family member, and then I went up to Arnprior. I actually have a video on my TikTok where I'm telling Chris to hurry up because I haven't got to meet him yet. Him and Tamara, I think. I'm saying, hurry up, guys. But in all fairness, they didn't know I was going there to meet them. So I do have a TikTok ad on that day.
You have to be fair.
I have to be fair. I mean, I couldn't bust them up for not being.
So
being there
then
to
you
meet me.
picked up that convoy and went into Ottawa and you described that and so on. Did you then stay there? That's what I'm trying to get at.
No, I wasn't there for quite a few days. I actually came in and out of the city. And as long as you know how to sneak through the city, there was no issue. I got in, I believe it was on or about the Wednesday before I was offered a room. And I was told by Tom Marazzo that I should get a room there because I needed to be more accessible instead of coming in and working late, going home, going to my family's home and coming back in the morning. So.
Okay, and just to close up on this, and when you would come back, where would your pickup truck go? Would it become part of the convoy again? Either on.
Oh, no, sir. I paid for parking.
Okay.
And when I have those parking passes, if you'd like to see them. And I also have the little pass from the ARC where I parked my vehicle. I never parked on the street.
Okay, so that's what I was trying to understand.
No, I'm respectful.
I'm just trying to get the information. Okay, so that ends, I think, for the day. It's a long day today, and the good news is it'll be a long day tomorrow. So 9:30, please.
The commission is adjourned. La commission est adjournée.
Oh, how was that day for you all? How was that day for you all? She paid for parking, Joe. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. At the end. Look at this. Look at this. My head is expanding on this one. How was that day for you? We had a full roller coaster. We started off, went up, went down, went up, but down. For example, as soon as Chris was talking, we were very excited. Brought up his history, he had to admit to, kind of went down a bit, but we're proud of him for admitting it. We get to Steve. We have a great time. We get to, why am I bad with names today? Brigitte? Oh, yeah, because I didn't sleep at all last night. Brigitte, because what happened at the end there? Well, there's two parts for Brigitte that I think we should briefly talk about. This Tamara falling out issue that kind of got thrown on us there. There seems to be a lot of animosity there. And then here on the end, this wandering through trying to get some more information out. You could see that the commissioner was very sensitive on making sure that he wasn't silencing her and allowed basically all the accommodations except for the one about him being appointed, right? There was not much he can do about that. If she didn't like it, she needed to take it to federal court. But he did do all the other accommodations. She definitely went more time than she was given originally. She definitely wasn't stopped putting anything in. Convoy wasn't happy with her. Well, caught that part. Convoy wasn't happy with her, talking about attacking character, et cetera, et cetera. So there's definitely a falling out there. I think that was clear. Not applicable to the EA question. So I don't think how that's foundationally material to the EA invocation. I think John mentioned that too, for sure, in the chat. But this is quite the drama day. We got 3 witnesses in. Okay. One thing I was a little annoyed about when this witness started was she was allocated an hour and 45 minutes, but slowly had 2 days. And it was averaging close to 8, 9 hours straight testimony. So he's got 16 to almost 20 hours of time to put in there. But thankfully, the commissioner did let her have all the time that she needed there. No sleep sucks. Yeah, railroad, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'm a grown boy. I can handle one night or two. I don't mess with them, other trucker. This is a great testimony. And LOL, Jamie. So I do want to cover a few things here today because I don't want to fall behind too many commentary videos. I do want to let you all know I lost that appeal to YouTube today. And I now know it's confirmed that the reason why that video was taken down was something that was said during testimony and only during testimony, because I have other videos where I took out all the inquiry. That video's still up. So the docs that I've been accused of and received a strike for happened during the inquiry portion of the video, because I have a full video that has inquiry taken down, and then I had a smaller video was just commentary still up. So that would make it something that happened during the testimony. Certainly, I can't be responsible for that. I'm reporting on the inquiry, and I'm, other than muting the music for a second there, I'm not responsible for what anybody says. But yeah, here we are. One more of those and I'm off for a week. I will be on Rumble, though. That's just going to be off of YouTube. I will be on Rumble. I won't miss a minute of this. So let's talk a bit about what was going on there. You had some questions about what was happening at the end there. I think basically from a commission standpoint, they just gave her a lot of rope and leniency just to be super cautious. You wouldn't normally see any of that happen in court other than the helping her with not just accessibility, accommodation. That's the word I'm looking for. Because accommodation means you help people be able to do what they need to do. And there's really no limit on what an accommodation is, as long as it's reasonable. And he found them all reasonable. So that included having a helper there. The comment caught the fact that the documents seem to have been jumbled up on her. That came out. Just want to talk about that for a second. It's most likely kind of her fault. I just want to be, devil's advocate here, because we heard about 200 and something documents were just thrown into the entire commission by her when she came today, or even in the afternoon. That's not cool. Okay, that's not cool. She knew what documents she was bringing all along, and you certainly should have provided them just so that they were already entered. So what likely happened was she showed up with her documents and said, "This is my evidence today." Commission staff, IT, document people, paralegals, people helping with that part of the evidence side of things, rushed through the scanning and putting it into the database. And as they were doing that, they were using their numbering system. These numbers that we have, 50, 11, 52, because that is the numbering system that's being used for all evidence. So they likely kind of just reorganized it to their system, handed it back, which was a complete mess for her. Being dyslexic and being organized for the day of, and then having it all just moved on you, that's a tremendous amount of stress for even people who are not dyslexic. That would be tough. But that's likely what happened. She brought in all the evidence. They had to scan it in. They had to give numbers to it so everybody else has access to the same numbering system, and away you go.
And if you like this video, remember to like and subscribe and press that notification button to receive more information like this. You can also follow me at yellowhead.vote to stay informed and get the inside scoop. Thank you.